Bless up for tuning in to Project Chaney. Magic happens when you question everything. Conspirituality becomes reality, weirdness is welcomed, and it's okay to change your mind. Big up yourself.
Big up yourself. Welcome to another episode of Project Chaney. As always, I'm Chaney, and I am so excited you are back here with me. I can feel your energy. I can see your beautiful smile. Maybe you're looking at me with some doughy eyes and some really great eyelashes. I don't know, but thank you for being here. Are you listening to me with all your ears, all your senses, your heart and soul? Are you here to listen to a great conversation? I hope it's a great conversation. I have John Paul Rice with me this week, and he is such a great conversation that I kept him longer than I've kept any other guest on my show. It was like his energy was so good to swim in. I did not want to let him go, and I didn't realize how much time I had lost. And I was lucky enough that he graced me with his wisdom and life experience and survival techniques to make it this far in the new world order that we are all still surviving. So thank you guys for being here. Before I get into talking about John Paul Rice, how are you guys? I am hanging in. You know, it's kind of weird when you go through these certain cycles of things that you kind of think you're at an age to not really go through anymore. You kind of think you're over whatever emotions or whatever feelings or whatever. You just feel like, I'm really going to have to do this again. Is this real shadow work? Well, obviously I didn't do it well enough the first time if I'm confronted with it again. I want to say I'm getting better at doing my shadow work. I'm better at observing the way I feel about things, how I feel them, where I feel them, who I feel them about, what is going on, why it's going on, what of my programming and brainwashing and upbringing is making me feel and think those things. And if I can peel away the onion of that and get to the core and sometimes have this little nugget of new truth about myself that I didn't know before I went through peeling away all of the pain and sorrow and love and grief and all those kind of things. So, yeah, just living through it, trying to be the best version of myself, trying to be really present with my energy and how powerful it is around the people that I care about. And I'm finding that that's strangers too. I'm trying to take the extra time to just send them good energy, love them more, care when I say, hey, how are ya? To actually stop and listen to the response instead of it being like that hello, goodbye, the I love you too. And it just becomes that we just said I love you, and now it's just like hello and goodbye. Yeah. So I'm kicking. I hope you guys are kicking. I don't even know how much I'm actually going to talk before this. I hung out with the Coven last night. I'm trying to get them ready to hang out with me on my podcast, and getting a whole group of ladies together to actually record is a little more difficult than you might think. And even though we sit in a room and hang out and chat and video all the time, all day, every day, doing it once I'm like, okay, you guys, I'm recording this and I might release it. You guys don't necessarily get the feel that I get yet, but it's coming. We definitely tried it last night. It was really fun. I probably will edit some of those parts of the conversation out and maybe put them on like an unreleased episode. I have a whole bunch of stuff from different people and different parts of conversations that I've cut, and maybe I'll release later on. So who knows where it'll go. But I do think it'll be fun. And it was the first time I tried to ever host with more than one other person in the room. And Yeah, so I talked about some of the stuff that I wanted to rant about with you guys last night, and it feels kind of like a regurgitation when more than one person hears me say one of my ideas, but whatever. We're here. Um, I was thinking a lot about Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, and then Prince again, which is probably a whole psyop in itself with the symbolism that he gave us for his name. But a lot of people think he was woke, whatever woke is. They think he was somebody trying to tell the truth and maybe killed for trying to tell the truth. There is connections to Prince you can make to the twin cities, the twins of it all, the Minneapolis, St. Paul. I might be totally wrong, but I feel like that's the whole George Floyd area. You almost wonder what kind of energy Prince was holding in that space for it to all just come crumbling down after his death. But I remember that song Party Like It's 1999, and when that song came out I didn't really understand it. Not that I was really around when it came out. I mean, I guess I was just probably too young. But when we all looked back on like Party Like It's 1999 when it's actually 1999, and it was like, well, why do you want to party like it's 1999? What's so great about 1999? And we were kind of talking about last night that right after 1999 was this huge loosh of Y2K, where they told us everything was going to turn off. And we had Y2K, and we had 9/11 right after that. And, all the loosh events that happened in between, the school shootings, the false flags, the everything. We had remember the 2012 that the world was going to end loosh. So when you think back to where we're at the end of Omicron and a Prince singing Party Like It's 1999, I feel like I finally understand that. Like if the world reversed and we all went back to 1999, it would be kind of the greatest thing in the whole world. Even the lack of computer and the lack of phone and the lack of it was a different world in 1999. Anyways, ode to Prince, ode to the purple rain of it all, ode to the doves crying and birds being fake. And there is some pretty good interviews you can look up about Prince talking about chemtrails. And it's even interesting how his music all got released. He didn't want it released that way. And the second he died, all his music's all over commercials and shit. And elevator, and he dies in an elevator. An elevator was always meant to represent the devil. The EL of it all. Anyways, I was thinking about Prince a lot this week. He has so many good songs, so much good music, and people that are really big musicians, guitar players and stuff, they always tell me that Prince is one of the most underrated guitar players of all time. So if you are out there, guitar players, you let me know. Write and tell me if that's true or not about Prince. I haven't taken in a ton of entertainment that I haven't told you guys about of recent. Oh, shit. Yes, I have. I have always been one of the people that I couldn't watch horror movies or scary movies. They gave me a weird kind of anxiety. It wasn't because I was scared. I'm not a person that's scared of the dark or anything like that, but they just gave me an unsettled, my palms would sweat while I watched it. And my heart would beat a little fast, and I didn't really like that feeling. And since my dissection and having my big fall away with entertainment, I feel like something about my filter is so clean now that I don't get any of the emotions from movies like I'm supposed to anymore, even for the good. Nothing touches my heart anymore. Nothing makes me laugh the same way anymore. Nothing makes me cry the same way anymore. Nothing scares me the same way anymore. This being said, I had a buddy, Emmanuel. He has been telling me forever to watch Hereditary. He has been telling me that I have to watch this movie forever and ever and ever. And I'm like, I don't watch scary movies. Stop telling me about this. And then he's like, you have to watch Midsummer. It's by the same director. You have to watch this. You have to watch this. I don't like scary movies. Stop telling me about this. So for whatever reason, Hereditary was on TV over the weekend, and it was during the day, and I put it on, and it's not scary. It's gross. I guess there's parts of it that are mildly gory. There's parts of it that are suspenseful, but it's really like a cult drama. And then Midsummer is kind of the same way. And watching these two movies back to back, And all the symbolism in both these movies are the same, from the mat on the door in Hereditary. If you've seen it, you understand what I'm talking about. There's a specific mat that characters have, is the exact same as the stuff inside the house on Midsummer. And also on the tree house in Hereditary, there's this big yod Y-shaped thing for the little girl, is the same rune on the farm in Midsummer. So it's almost like you could take certain characters out of Hereditary and say that maybe they got their teachings and this occult ritualistic behavior and stuff that they were doing that they brought to other parts of the world from Midsummer and these cults that are going on there. The juxtaposition of the gruesome brutality and then these people wearing all white. There's also an actress that's in Hereditary, and she, oddly enough, is one of the people, if you've ever seen the show The Leftovers on HBO, she's one of the actresses that plays in the people that dress in all white. So there is something, even their all white parties, the Puff Daddy, the Hollywood, how they really spread that all white. There is something occult. And one of the big things that they do in these movies is an elder, like a person, can make their energy jump into a younger spirit. So they're never really dying. And a thing about Hereditary is they're taking, I don't want to give anything of these movies away, but whatever, they're so old. If I hate the spoiler alert. Everybody knows this about me. I hate it. And I would love to talk to these if you guys want to geek out on them. And if you want to go to the Project Chaney Telegram page and you guys want to have a movie night one night, I'm totally into it. Maybe I'll record it and release part of it on here. I still don't know what I'm going to do with all that. You guys let me know if you're interested. And you guys do write me if you watch the shows. Some of you were pretty funny. Some of the guys that actually started the L word with their wives and stuff. That was really entertaining for me. And yeah, thumbs up. I think it's lesbians make babies. Not technically, we don't make babies, but there's something about lesbians that makes babies for straight people. Oh, shit. Yeah, I don't even know. So you guys taken Hereditary, taken Midsummer. Yeah, I was finishing the thought. There's something that they take like an ancient Egyptian deity and they do these rituals so this ancient energy can come into another being. And one of the beings in Hereditary is like this old woman's body, and he is a young masculine god. So it takes them like however many years to finally find the right male body for that energy to jump into. And it's the Shinigami, I think it is, which is the Japanese spirit, that it's the suicide spirit that jumps bodies. I think all these ideas kind of connect into one idea. Like that's what I think the elite or dark powers or something are doing. They're not just conjuring up sources from like dust to life. They're actually allowing these energies to exist through time, and we're not aware of the forms that they're taking. This is a heady idea. The other thing I'm realizing in these movies, because I watched the Yellow Jackets, if you guys haven't seen that, I think it's a Showtime Showtime miniseries or just series. It's not a miniseries. It's going to come out next season. So it's called Yellow Jackets. It has Juliette Lewis, Christina Ricci, and it is about like a women's soccer team, women's lacrosse team, some women's sports team, and their plane goes down in the middle of like Canadian mountains somewhere, and they end up lost for like a year and a half in the middle of nowhere. And they are leading us to believe in season 1 that they're kind of partaking in this cannibalism. One of the big things about Midsummer is they partake in this cannibalism. And a big thing with this cannibalism that keeps coming up every time is they're always on mushrooms with the cannibalism. Like somehow there's a ritual with the mushrooms that they're also mixing in with the psychedelic. And it just creeps me out a little bit because I know the Pacific Northwest is really pushing the legalization of mushrooms. And I think it's a very dangerous idea to just do mushrooms not in a spiritual way. I think it's a very dangerous idea to think you can play with things like that and have a full concept of what is actually going on. And there's something fleshy about mushrooms to me in general. You know, I was talking to some people today about it, is a lot of vegans, they won't eat honey because it comes from bees. They also won't eat mushrooms because they feel like there's some form of sentient being. And these are two different schools. This isn't all vegans. I'm not putting stamps on any of you out there if you consider yourself vegan or not. And I just find it really interesting that a lot of the vegans you talk to, they will partake in honey and or mushrooms, but it's only medicinal, only for healing properties. Like honey's very antibacterial, and I think it's like antimicrobial and all this like anti-good stuff for us. And, you know, mushrooms are obviously very spiritual, and we know about psychedelic mushrooms, but you almost wonder what the properties of all these other mushrooms that we're just throwing into things, not even thinking about it, like these chanterelles and these, you know, I'm going to go and get these really expensive fries now that everyone's dipping their oil in because we all have to have this new kind of French fry, but it's really made in mushroom oil. I don't know. I just think I notice a push when the government starts legalizing things. I'm like, they still won't give me weed. That's still Schedule 1. Even though it's legal in some places, it's still the Schedule 1 drug. But we're just going to shovel off mushrooms to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I don't think this is smart. But I don't know. This is a huge concept, but I'm definitely noticing that they are mixing the ritual of whatever happens with the psychedelic on mushroom, and they are occulting it with the practice of cannibalism. I don't know if it is trying to scare us off of doing the mushrooms or walking into the middle of a woods and finding some commune. Like, is the whole thing just trying to scare us away from these ideas of ritual, or is the whole thing kind of revelation of the method where it's just truth in plain sight? Here you go. You guys be entertained by the rituals we're doing on Epstein Island and Zorro Ranch every year. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But I would be interested if people smarter than me check it out and see what they think. But there is a lot of it that feels like very, very dark magic. And everything I look into with magical thought and the people that I'm lucky enough to be friends with that practice in different kinds of mystical practices. That was practice, like that whole phrase I just said sounded redundant. But the people I know that practice in these type of things, I just think it's very, very, very possible. And the world that we actually exist in is so much more magical and unexplainable. And that is the fear of science, is that it can't explain the magic. And every time we start trusting the science, I'm still waiting for the science to be right. Still waiting, still waiting, still waiting. Anyways, I am a little upbeat to bring you this episode. John Paul Rice's energy felt so good. I didn't know this until I looked down after we were recording. I'm like, oh my gosh, I kept him in here for so long, like longer than any other guest. I almost felt bad about it. But my spirit was just comforted around him. He's divinely masculine and divinely feminine. He has survived a ton of traumas and still has a very kind, pure heart. He is articulate and he has a great dichotomy of words. I feel kind of like we got to reacquaint ourselves this time. He is one of the people I have gotten to hug in person and been lucky enough to know is real in this world of internet friends, and feel his real energy on a day that is one of the most important pivotal days of my whole life. And it was good to see him on that day in DC on January 6th. And it was nice to get to talk to him about it. I didn't realize emotionally the baggage I was going to carry from the quote unquote insurrection. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to have my country call me a terrorist. Not my country, but the news. And it didn't even hurt me so bad. Like, I almost felt like the punk rock bitch set up enough that I was like, I don't give a shit if you think I'm a terrorist or not. I will own the domestic terror title. But it made me really sad for a lot of the veterans and kids and moms and dads and people. And that had nothing to do with Anons ever. They were never Proud Boys. It wasn't ever about Republican and Democrat for them. They were just Americans showing up because they thought their election was about to be stolen. And they thought that day it wasn't going to get stolen. And they thought they were going to watch the president speak and, Pence do the right thing. They were really there with the best intentions in their heart. And when I first went, I went because I thought it was going to be so gratifying to watch the Republican Party get their big fucking red pill. I thought it was going to feel so good to watch them realize, like, no, you think Trump's on your team? No, your whole team's rotten. Like, it was like, I just thought it was going to be I don't know. It didn't feel good to watch people be heartbroken. And usually when people are heartbroken, instead of just be sad, anger is so much easier to find. And I would almost guarantee you that there were more people crying that day that weren't recorded than there were up at the Capitol, with buffalo ears and banging glass out of a bottom window. I don't know. It was a crazy day. It will be interesting if the real story of that day ever comes out, or even if the real footage of that day ever comes out. But it's validating and healing to me when I can talk to another person like John Paul Rice, and he remembers the magic too. And he remembers what it felt like before everything went so chaotic. And we get into a little bit of that. He has no restrictions productions, and he puts out a lot of films. And the great things about the films he puts out is they're not political. They're just a cut of life. They're just a cut of any life anywhere in the world. And sometimes the subject matter is so intense and so real, but it's intense and real not for the explosion, not for the extra tears, not for the, I don't know. It's just honest. It's like honest filmmaking or something. And I think we've been all led away so much with our special effects and our CGIs and these fake emotions. Everything feels like a fucking musical. There's just a part of John Paul Rice's movies that just feel honest and raw, and like they really could be inside your house, or inside a house of somebody else you know, or inside an experience of somebody you know. Yeah. I really hope you guys have a great week. I really hope that it feels easy. I hope the energy feels easy. I hope you find a flow state at some point. Pick up a pencil or pen. Pick up a paintbrush. Put your hands on the piano. Do something creative. Do something beautiful, even if it's the thought of never showing anyone. Even if it's a canvas that lays up against the wall just for you. Create something this week. Plant a plant. Start a seed. Create. Do something. Let John Paul Rice and my interview inspire you, because he is creating things and he is doing things, and he seems like one of those people that if you have a great idea, he's going to run with it. He's not going to sit and say, remember that one time we had that idea? No, he's going to do the idea. So this is the week. Why not this week? You can change your whole life this week, and whatever's holding you back, whatever broken heart, whatever bruised ego, whatever lonely feeling, it may be there tomorrow. It may be there 10 years from now. You're stronger than that. You have good people around you if you're here. If you are here and you are listening to this, you can reach out to me at projectchaney@gmail.com. You can find me at Project Chaney or Chaney Project on Twitter. You can find me at Chaney in Wonderland or Project Chaney on Instagram. And if you reach out to me in any of those ways, I will tell you where to find a group of people to hang out with and to not feel so lonely out there. I love you guys. If you decide you need more of me this week, please head over to Let's Be Friends podcast and listen to a very fun, informative conversation where I was lucky enough to hang out with Kara Mosher. I don't know her middle name, but I always want to say Kara Ann Mosher. But I hung out with Kara Mosher. It's a pretty fun episode. And I am always checking in the weaving spiders. So you never know. If you guys are up late nights, they are there too. So make sure you are subscribing and liking the Weaving Spiders channel on YouTube, because sometimes I like to go hang out there. I have some fun interviews coming up that I am excited about and can't wait to tell you about, but I don't like to do that until they're solidified. I have a couple of people I'm harassing that we still can't seem to make our timing work. And I kind of have a fun idea in the works for February that I could end up hanging out in person with some of your favorite content providers. So send me good energy and I will send you good energy. And we will meet back here in a couple of days. All right, let's get into John Paul Rice. Hey, you guys, I'm very excited for this. Out of all the internet friends, we're not necessarily friends yet, but you, John Paul Rice, are one of the few people in this internet world that I have hugged in person in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. So it was crazy because we were on a podcast like the week before, right at election time in November. We both happened to be on a tinfoil hat panel the voting day. And we didn't discuss DC. I don't even think DC was in the mix, even in our zeitgeist of going at all to Washington, DC. But anyways, welcome to Project Chaney.
Hey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you here yet again. Here we are a year after the day, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's pretty. And, how did you end up in DC?
Well, it was weird. I felt I needed to go, and I don't know why. Other than the legitimate justification was, I was going to be able to meet people that I had connected with online over the last 3 years as I was beginning to learn about all sorts of crazy ass stuff. And it's just so weird. I ended up getting asked at the last minute to do a live stream cover of news for UI Media Network, which is Tim Ray's company. And that actually kept me away from a lot of the crowd. It actually pushed me ahead of the crowd by like 45 minutes to an hour. So I had to get on the other side of the Capitol before everything went down. But yeah, I just wanted to go, and the flight and the hotel and everything worked out. And I flew into Baltimore. I came down on a train to DC, stayed where a lot of people were staying at, like the Moxie. I think there was, the row of hotels over there. And I just wanted to meet some of the people that, I'd gotten to know through their shows and everything else. And it was really awesome. I was there January 5th. I think it was 5th, 6th, flew back on the 7th. Wild times. I remember all of our cell phones not working that night. You couldn't send any text messages out, at least on my service. I remember going live with David Whitehead that night. He wanted to know what the hell was going on. I was just telling him, like, this is insane and crazy. And we were just still starting to learn everything. But I was telling everybody, like, everything you're seeing on TV right now is a total and complete lie, 100%, because the way they were doing all that. And then in the end of the day, the next day, I still had an optimism. I was on Dave Janda's show, and I told him, he goes, why are you, he asked me, like, why are you so upbeat? And I said, because at the end of the day, Dave, everybody who met here had a renewed spirit. Like we saw an entire cross section of America, every race, color, and creed, gays for Trump with their flags, I mean, it was all of the whole culmination of 4 years that I went from thinking this guy was a complete fascist dictator, Hitlerian Nazi, because I was on the left. I came from the left. I was a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2015, 2016, not because I was a communist or socialist, but because I considered myself to be an economic populist from the point of being of compassion, right? For the homeless, for all the things that are real, but not this other crap, that it became, which was this righteous anger crap and having hatred for your fellow human being who was, I mean, just declaring them outright your enemy. And so,
what was the Fifth like different before even the Capitol? What was the Fifth like in DC?
Fifth was like a celebration and a party right there. I forgot where we were all at. It was the square, Lincoln Square. I can't remember. It was like about a half a mile or a mile away from the Ellipse. It was still kind of in the downtown area. And they had rallies going on. They had music. They had speakers. They had songs. There was a lot of shop, vendors. There was probably, I remember that day in the afternoon as people were coming into town, there was several thousands of people that gathered there. And of course, the night before, people were going out to dinner and having all sorts of fun. So it was a really lively and festive type of environment. And I remember being interviewed by a couple of people. Ann Vandersteel was one of them. And she said, "What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe, I mean, he's got, like, you never know with Trump what's really going on. Like, I mean, in the sense of you think you know, but you don't know, right?" And I thought, well, maybe it's, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just thought something good could come out of it, right? And because they were expecting over 1 million people. And I saw at least 500,000, at least, I mean, by the eye. But the day before, it was festive. It was upbeat. People from all over, like I said, every race, color, and creed was there. And it was people from all over the country. And those people, as I was talking to some of them, were representing hundreds, if not thousands of other people back home who wish they could have been there.
Yeah.
Wish they could have taken off. So it was a hopeful time. I think it was kind of that last protest hurrah.
Yeah. That
we thought maybe just by the sheer force of our number being there and peacefully protesting, that the senators, or all of the people in, that all the people in our Capitol would do the right thing and not certify an illegal election for which I don't have to say this to your audience, but for the people who may not get this, it's like this. I saw them rig the shit out of the primary against Bernie Sanders in 2016, to the point where I did the statistical analysis and downloaded the actual real-time data as it was coming in, because many people had caught the anomalies. Mm-hmm. My background is in analysis. I worked for a bank for 14 years. I was in systems. I had the understanding of how to code and program, and I got a couple of people on board. We were pulling down Secretary of State, reporting in real time every 10 seconds, repeated on a schedule. And then we also did it on like Huffington Post and others to match. And then we cross-referenced the data and scrubbed it all. We were seeing millions of votes being taken out of the final tallies at the end of the night that would have given, and it's not even that they would have given Sanders a victory. It's the fact that it was so overwhelming. He won with 60 to 70% of the vote in every single state going back to Iowa. That's how shitty these people are.
That was one of my things right at the beginning of the whole Trump thing that I kept telling everyone, even when the election was coming up. that you guys don't realize how many quote unquote Trump supporters are old Bernie supporters. The most educated group of these Trump supporters aren't these anons and militias or whatever rednecks they're telling you Republicans are. A lot of them were voting for Bernie because they wanted to corrupt the system from the inside out, and they thought Bernie was that dude. He was the third party candidate.
Anti-establishment.
Yes, he was.
They were anti-establishment.
We thought he was the third party guy that Trump ended up being. We thought Bernie was the third party guy. We were naive. We were just like, look at Vermont. It's doing everything right.
And what did he do? He just sheep herded everybody back into Clinton, just like he did with Biden. And I'm like, you endorsed 2 pedophiles, dude. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Same.
It's like, you can't sit there and make a political argument and make arguments about content of character against Trump when you're sitting here literally endorsing these people. And it just broke my heart, but it was a heartbreak in steps, right? It wasn't like overnight that I realized that. And then when I saw Trump and Clinton go at it and Trump won, I was scared to shit because of my cognitive dissonance, not realizing that, yes, they rig it against the establishment characters all the time, like they did Ron Paul, like they did Ross Perot, like they do everybody. And the thing is that she didn't even win the popular vote in the general in 2016, because if you actually just price it out, this is math, okay? I know it sucks. Everybody's got to think about this, right? He increased his percentages among women, among Blacks, among Latinos, and Asians, okay? These are the courted 4 groups of the Democrats, right? Women, Blacks, Latinos, Asians. He increased his percentage over Romney, doubling them than Romney did in 2012. Okay, among what that meant, and in 2018, the New York Times said this clearly, that 20% of Obama supporters either voted Trump, stayed at home, or voted third party. 20%. So I'm asking, between those 2 equations, that 20%, by the way, is 13.5 million votes that did not vote for Clinton. Where among the 4 groups that I just mentioned, or any others, did Clinton increase turnout over Obama to make up that loss of 13.5 million voters? They don't exist.
They don't exist.
They don't exist.
And even in your just like, let's play Hollywood game, there's no way now. Biden is making more numbers than Hillary made. It's like if we were just playing popularity games in high school. There's no way that math works.
I ask people, this is how crazy this is. So I went to one of my Bernie Sanders friends in Los Angeles who knows about all of this agenda, right? This is how crazy shit is. And I said to her, you do realize this is a rigged election? She goes, no, John, so many people hated Trump. So many people. I said, so many people more that 12 million people more people voted for Trump this time around than in 2016. So many people hated Trump so much that 12 million more people voted for him. Where did he get? He had 95% approval rating among Republicans. Where did he get that? Did he get it among independents? Did he get it among Democrats? Where the hell is that money? Oh, it's rigged. Well, the Republicans rigged it. No. Excuse me. Joe Biden was in 10 debates during the Democrat primaries. You can go back and look this up online. He didn't win a damn one of them, according to the media. So the guy who had $500,000 left in his bank account surged ahead of Bernie Sanders after finishing 4th and 5th place in 2 out of the first 3 contests. He picks a vice presidential candidate who didn't even make it on the ballot in Iowa. She had to drop out 2 months before a single vote was cast in the primary. You're going to tell me that duo got 13.5 more votes than Obama did in 2008? Are you out of your freaking mind?
So
you've got to be
Obama was a rock
serious
star.
Crap.
In 2008, we hadn't seen a politician like that. That was bigger than Reagan.
I voted for him twice.
I didn't. I think, let's see, the first time I don't know what order I did it. One of the Obama times I wrote in Ron Paul. The other Obama time I wrote in Jesse Ventura. I don't remember what way I did it. And I knew it was like a waste of a vote either times. But let's see. What was the first Trump time? In 2016, I think I wrote in Bernie. Just because I wanted Hillary to know she lost because of me. Like, it really was just like, I still didn't even...
You and your Susan Sarandon worship.
I know. I was just like, nope, I'm going to write in Bernie. I still can't vote for Trump. And a weird part about not being able to vote for Trump, I think it took Trump for me to realize, like, oh, the media all hates you. Hollywood all hates you. And the more I looked into all the politicians and all the media and all the Hollywood, each one of them as a single person, the more I looked into each of them, all the people, like the lady does protest too loud. All the people that hated him the most had the most to lose. And all the mouths that were the biggest had the most to lose. And I'm still super hopeful person that everything had to play out, because sometimes you do have to show the people. We've been screaming for 4 years that this has been going on. Some conspiracy theorists have been screaming for 20 years that the New World Order was coming. And if not for Trump, we would be living in the New World Order right now. But we aren't living in it.
Right. That's the one thing that, I mean, we can get into this a little bit. I have a different take on it. Not that you're wrong. I think that's one part of the duality, the dualistic system that we live in.
Yeah.
Which means that there was a necessity to sustain a 4-year campaign where he filleted the media up the gut, right? Because if we were to have come into this time with Hillary Clinton as president, not only would she be a terrible president and we would be in a hell realm right now that we can't imagine. Let's just say everything would have happened as it did, right? And woman and woo and
Yay,
all that. But this
Hillary.
pandemic thing, right? You're talking about 3 to 5 years of lockdowns.
Yes.
Because they would have to, but because the justification for putting the vaccine out there, they would have had to gone through the trials.
That's why,
right?
As much as everyone hates it, warp speed had to happen. Operation Warp Speed had to go down like that because they were going to lock us in our houses until we had a vaccine. Regardless of what way the chessboard played out, we weren't going to be allowed to do anything until there was a vaccine. So there had to be a vaccine. Now, your freedom of choice to take it has always been there. That's where everybody, they're like, a mandate has never been a law. It's an illusion, and you've decided on whether or not you're playing along with the illusion.
Correct. If you believe that the authorities and what they tell you is true, then it makes it real. It's no different than what happens in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else on the media. We can get into the programming and how they get, it's very sinister. It's very creepy. They use neuro-linguistic programming. We can talk about that tonight. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm open to discuss, outside of Trump, because
it's so polarizing to pop off with.
Well, here's the thing. It's like here's how I set the table for anybody who wants to discuss politics. I'm like going, look, your guy this, my girl that, you're Mr. Smith that, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Do you know who they are as people? Have you really spent a day in the life with that person? Have you had lunch with them? Outside of what you've seen on television, outside of what is projected onto you about them, what you feel about them, you have feelings for these people that you don't even know, more so, and you will argue it more fervently and passionately than other people who are right there in your universe, right in front of you. That's how crazy this shit is to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like sitting here going, well, Obama tried. Excuse me, he was doing, here's a verifiable source in Politico, telling you that he was doing drug running and trafficking with Hezbollah, and they were doing shipments of cars down into Latin America with human trafficking involved. It's like, but you know, he was a good guy. I really liked him. And Michelle, it's like, the fuck.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm getting a little angry here, but
you were gonna like them. They designed their characters around.
yes, they're chosen.
Yes, chosen.
These people are chosen for so many reasons that have nothing to do with their political stances. It's neuro-linguistic programming. People really need, I'll give you an article if you want to share it with your audience, but it's on SOTT, S-O-T-T, I think is, and you can look up mind warfare. I forgot, I don't have it right here in front of me, but you're talking about the psyop of all psyops. Neuro-linguistic program, which your audience probably knows something about, is basically used by your politicians, by your media, by salespeople. And what it basically is this. You have certain thoughts, right, that they give you to think. And when you're watching TV or you're on social media or doing anything, you are rewiring your brain without you even knowing it. Because what you've done is you have taken in the fourth wall that they have offered you, and it goes right past this, the prefrontal cortex of where you judge stuff, to say, I don't think so. I got a few questions of that. And even if you disagree, it goes right into your subconscious mind. They know how to get into your brain with this. They know how to program you. And the more you give license to it, energy to it, especially with humor or anywhere, I mean, just look at Saturday Night Live. You know, a lot of people think, oh, but look at what they do with Weekend Update. They'll actually disclose truth in there, but even though when they get you the truth, they'll throw a laugh line in it as a joke to soften it. And this is how they're programming you to make you comply with all of the different things, so that it's entertainment, it's humor, but it is doing something to your brain.
It's
and
so
it's
dangerous.
Your behavior.
Yes, that the news,
changing your behavior.
People are watching news, quote unquote, news channels, and they're on guard. They're watching it like they're taking in reality. So they're on guard with their bias switches. Like, I don't know if I agree or don't agree. Let me shovel it away. Let me file it away. But when they're watching, quote unquote, entertainment, they turn off any of those guards and they relax and they let all their guards chill out in lawn chairs. And they think, oh, all this, it doesn't matter. It's all just entertaining me. The cartoons, the everything. And I think what you're even saying is even more so dangerous because of the amount of screens we have. So now I'm on my phone scrolling and I have auditory stuff coming into my ears that I'm not even wearing. I'm not aware I'm listening to it because I'm paying attention to my eyes on here, the news I'm listening to here. I look up occasionally and see a banner at the bottom here, and all that stuff is, I keep saying to people, it's algorithm versus synchronicity. They're breaking our synchronicity. So we're like, oh my God, 111. Oh my God, 222. Well, you're looking down at your phone every second of the day, girl. Of course you're seeing 111. You're always looking at your phone. Start making synchronicities butterflies and birds and sunsets. Start making your synchronicities real life stuff out there, and not the, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about Betty White. Of course you were. They have her on every magazine at the store. They have her on every news station. Of course I was just thinking of the Golden Girls. You were thinking of the Golden Girls. Look at our synchronicity. That's not synchronicity. That's the algorithm.
That is 100% correct. And people don't realize that the Matrix was built as a mind control device simply for the fact that they knew that you were the anomaly. But the anomaly, as far as they could program it to keep it believing in its value, we don't realize that this gets into crazy talk, but there's
no such thing here.
Well, I'm just saying, and I say crazy talk to the average person on the street is like, no, you're manifesting. When you're talking about manifestation, you have to go through all the dimensions of what that means. It's not, oh, I'm manifesting my reality. Like I read this book and then I go over here. No, everything that is around you is a mirror. Every single thing that you surround yourself is a mirror. It is reflecting, it's giving you feedback and you're feeding it, and it's feeding you. There's no separation. You put living things around you. I'm not talking about like health benefits now and what looks pretty and all that. There is a symbiotic relationship with every single piece of matter that you bring towards you. Everything that you fill your mind with, you are creating it out into the field at all times. You are bringing it towards you. Your thoughts, your intentions, your feelings. It's not, these are not like feelings of love or thought of this. It's bigger than that. It's your conscious, unconscious. It's almost like I
an
describe
energetic
it,
Taurus.
Energetic Taurus that actually is reaching into the cosmos and pulling down. We talk about, people talk about downloads, and I'm not here to discuss that really, like in terms of what that means or isn't. But what I'm saying is that your psychic being, all that you are, is creating the reality around you in cycles, in loops, in steps. There's dimensions to it that are seen and unseen. There's ones that are practical and not explainable. There's synchronicities and quote coincidences that occur. And all of it is your life. It's your own movie. It's your own story. And each one, the way to look at it is kind of like this. There's 7.8 billion people on this planet today, roughly. Each and every single one of them is in their own universe, in their own reality. And their reality to them is as real as yours is to you, as is to the next person. The danger of this is that, and this is why media is so dangerous and technology on the whole, not that it intentionally can be changed, right? But as it exists today, our perceptions of those things given to us by the cultural engineers, we're the vessel that goes out and ingests all of this stuff and thinks that these are our own thoughts and feelings coming forward. When in fact, what they have done, if you want to go at the higher level, on the spiritual level, which is blood ritual sacrifice rituals that have been done over 10,000 years or so, minimum, to create the collective unconscious trauma-based mind control in order to make us believe that our reality is real. And this really, this was in a book I read, and I'd have to pull the title of it, but it was a study in 1981. The scientist did a study where he took 50 and 60-year-old men and women and recreated an artificial environment, but it was an authentic artificial environment of what their lives were like when they were 25 years old. So he took them back into the 1950s and he populated it. They had all the furniture, all the colors, all the wallpaper, the decorations, the clothes, the magazines, the television shows, the radio, everything, dishes, every detail, like it was James Cameron recreating the Titanic, every single friggin' detail, right? Mm-hmm. They had them live in that for a month. And after the first week, these 50 and 60-year-old men and women, they had taken all their biometric readings, their health data, everything. They'd classified, diagnosed them. And they didn't tell them what the experiment was, right? They just said, yeah, you're going to go do this. After a week, they all started talking like they were 25 and thinking like they were 25 again, and their health started to return like they were 25 again. And what this tells you is that the energy, frequency, and vibration of the creation of our surroundings and our reality plays a direct role into how we perceive our reality and manifest within us and outside of us simultaneously. In other words, time as it exists is a state of mind. It's a state of mind and perception to where we are at. In other words, if you were an alien today and you came from outer space and you landed here on Earth and you didn't know anything about what was going on, you wouldn't know COVID existed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't. If you crawled out from underneath a rock and came into the United States and you saw people wearing masks, I mean, you might ask some questions. It's like, hey, what are they wearing? But COVID would not be COVID, and all your understandings of it would not exist. In fact, if the media and these billionaire corporations, pharmaceutical industry, media, Hollywood industrial complex, really one and the same, with your politicians, everything, if they never spoke it into existence and people started getting sick and some started dying, guess what? COVID wouldn't exist. I mean, it potentially would if you said, well, it's a bioweapon, John, and and all. Yeah, but what I'm saying is the belief in it.
Yes.
Think about it like this. Step back for a second, go back to 2020 before all this happened, right? And think about what this did. So COVID is here, COVID-19, it's a deadly virus. Of course, they said it's only grandma and grandpa. Oh, we can go through all that. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is it changed everybody's concept and understanding and feelings towards the people who died that year.
Mm-hmm.
The people who died that year were afraid of dying. What does fear do to an immune system? It lowers it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have doctors that are afraid of getting close to patients because they could catch it, you see the fear, the fields of fear, the social distancing, the teredo fields that you were talking about, how that closes. The 6 feet of distance is actually the when you're in a state of fear, your teredo field only goes out that far at most.
Mm-hmm.
These were separation rituals. These were isolated rituals. This isn't Dr. Fauci in a mastermind. He's just a fucking puppet.
They did this brilliant thing too at the beginning of all that, and it's just they put 2 titles on people, and those 2 titles made these people heroes. Like Ellen would repeat over and over again, trust the smart people, trust the smart people, trust the smart people. So once you're smart, we were led to believe our whole lives for 20, 30 years that smart people were the most educated people. And we thought educated people were people who asked questions, people who, no, they were the best regurgitators. Philosophy has left our education system a long time ago. That's why people are so like, you're asking me too many questions. This is too many questions. Questions should be, that's everything. The answers are that's where all the lies are. So it's like somewhere along this whole narrative and whole close down, they just told us, trust the smart people. And then they gave nurses, heroes, clerks, they started calling them heroes. So they have capes. So now if you wear a cape every day and you're going to your normal job, that's no scarier than your job was yesterday, or no scarier than it was. But now lights and pizza parties and TikTok dances and everything. Are you really going to come home, take your cape off and tell everyone you're really not Superman? Are you really going to come home and say, you know, you guys, I have a lot of education as a doctor, but I've been wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong, and I just keep taking my higher ups' advice? Or am I going to keep being called a hero because it feels a lot better to me? So I feel like we started calling everyone smart people and everyone heroes, and those are all the people that unknowingly, they didn't mean to be the one sheep that was the head following the farmer to slaughter, and then all the other sheeps followed him because they were the smart hero. It's like, it's the Berkeley experiments. As long as somebody was telling us to do it, we were all like, okay, the authority figure told me, so you better put your mask on. I'm going to turn my neighbors in because the authority's telling me. It's like that same little idea. We policed each other and brainwashed each other because now I'm smarter than you if I followed this science.
And really, and behind that, and this, you bring up a good point, which it had to do with narcissistic behaviors. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, this is the thing that's behind, if you really look into what, now I'm not talking about declaring people narcissists, okay? So I want to be very clear that narcissistic behaviors, I've had them. I think we could all say in some ways we've been scarred by that.
They're from our traumas. A lot of the times they're there because we're protecting ourselves somewhere.
If you want to really like price it out, narcissism is a self-defense mechanism. Now, that doesn't justify it, doesn't make it right, okay? But if you look at narcissists, true people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they have actually done studies on this. This is true. They carry the most blame, shame, and guilt among any other human being. And so you go, well, why wouldn't they then fix that? Because they can't. That's why they're narcissists. They're unaware individuals who are trying to avoid punishment, which means that at the earliest, the signs are there that at the earliest days of their life, before there were words, before the child had thoughts, they were under assault by the 2 people who were supposed to love them. And they had no outlet to be able to express their true feelings, to be able to express what it is that we as children should hope to be able to do with our own parents, the two people that are caring for us. And why I'm saying this is because this is all ties into the trauma-based mind control, which is you believe you're doing the right thing. You're trusting the authority, who is the subjugate mother and father, parental figure, our projection onto Obama, our projection onto Trump, our projection onto Biden, Fauci, the medical industry, our cult, Oprah, all the people who speak the language of virtue. Now, the best actors that are on the stage, the world stage, are the unaware. Because again, if we were getting into Hollywood, the idea that any of those people, as they are presented on television, is who they actually are is quite the opposite. They're in those positions. The best way to look at this is they're energetic weapons. They are there to represent energies that are tied to our beliefs, and also they're both there to magnetize and polarize simultaneously, right? So Trump was basically the ugly face of a two-sided mirror that finally got split down the middle. And what that meant is, on just keeping it simple, on one side of the equation, everything that was projected over here by this group of people, they saw a hero and a savior, just being simplistic, right? And on everybody on this side of the mirror that was looking at the very same thing saw a misogynist, narcissist, Hitlerian dictator.
The Antichrist or a savior, one or the other.
Right. And in this time, this is the only thing that is really why I'm hopeful, but I'm also vigilant going forward. Everybody in this time over now, 5 years, has been given a savior and a villain, both sides. And that has been hard imprinted, encoded, because if we think, well, the people who didn't get the jab are the ones who are the Trump supporters, the people who did are the Biden supporters. I've met plenty Trump supporters that knew the mask was bullshit, got both jabs. The cognitive dissonance out there is tremendous. It's bigger than anything that we think we know. But this is where I was kind of going with all of this, ties it into the trauma-based mind control and the narcissism, is that none of us wishes to be wrong, and none of us wants to not be part of the group on the whole. We still, at the end of the day, what we all are, what is inside of each and every single one of us, is a child that wants to be loved. And if those things are distorted enough, then the contradictions of the upside down world that are apparent to other people are not as apparent to them. When I was saying your reality is as real as to the next person and the next person, well, from the outside appearance, it doesn't seem that way. But from the inside, all of those feelings are. We all felt fear. We all know what pain is, what your experience with pain is and what mine is, and the dynamic of it, and what those pains have been and are different, but they're no different when you price them out on an emotional level. The capacities and the amounts and the frequency over time is different. But again, we still relate on that level because of empathy. To know, I don't know what it's like to be you, but I know what it's like to feel that way, right? I don't know the conditions that created that way, that made you feel that way, but I definitely can try and relate through what it's been like for me when I've been hurt before, when I've been betrayed before. And the thing that I will say that is probably more than likely what we're going to see unfold is this unwinding, right? It's an election year. That's not the issue, really. It's the fact that the numbers are so bad for these people that everything that they're trying to do to calm the public down and keep them listening to them and believing in them, that's why you're seeing, the press throw Biden under the bus. And none of this matters because it's already been done. It's already been pre-planned. That's the thing that we've got to start getting out of our heads with news. News is the reporting of things that both they want you to selectively know and things that have already been planned and things that have already happened. Like, it's like following the Maxwell trial. I'm not saying it isn't worth informing people, but at the end of the day, all that they are convicting her on, all of that they're reporting on, all the names that are going to come out and the resignations or whatever is going to happen, this, that, or the other, it is important. But what is important to remember is that that's not where the victory lies for us in the spiritual world, because that's all the past.
Yeah.
And what this time is about is we have been given an opportunity to see for the very first time what is going on behind that curtain, right? Trump's election blew a hole through reality as far as most people understood it. And for anybody who looked through that hole and on the other side of it, you saw an entirely different world, right? Sure as hell did. But I just want to make this very clear. There are people who are going to take the fall. For like Fauci, for sure, is going to have, there is going to come a moment for Fauci, whether he's arrested or whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. You could take all of the pedophiles in our institutions today, march them out on camera, send them to trial, convict them all, send some of them to death, others incarcerate for the rest of their lives. And here's the thing, the scars of this time are where the spiritual community must rise beyond the narratives that will be fed as the new storyline in the victory. And why I'm saying that is because tyranny doesn't last forever. That is true. But the other side of this is that the authoritarian energy that has been summoned forward, you can look at it as leftism. You and I can talk about, like progressivism and all that and what it all means. And it's word salad, emotional language. But the scars from this time, that BLM, Antifa, communist, socialist, anarchist wing that has been weaponized is an energy out there that is going to have blowback on the right. And it's going to bait them to come in and clean out all of that because it's a necessity to do so, which we will see people cheering and wanting, because in 2022 and 2024, those are revenge elections. Those are revenge elections.
Have you been a little surprised at how not even the religious right and not just the gun-toting right. Have you been surprised at how chill they've been?
I have seen most of those people stand back and just go, I'm going to defend my community. And that's
it's kind of interesting how being prepared takes away all panic and gives you a different view. Like if you have all the water in the world and weapons in the world and tomato plants in the world, then COVID probably doesn't exist for you either any more than a new world order does. You're like, yeah, whatever. Me and my people are good and I have enough to give if there's more people that come. And that's kind of the position everybody's trying to set themselves at. Separately, I keep bringing up how for the right, the thing they scare me most about is they're always with their Second Amendment, which I think is hella important. But while they've been gathering up their guns and getting more ammo, they've lost their bars and their churches and their right to speak and their right to gather, and every one of their First Amendment's gone. So why everybody was playing for the toy, the fun gun, the First Amendment, the thing that the Second Amendment's there for, is all but if it's there at all. And so yeah, it's just the both sides of it, even down to the Obamacare, was just Romney care in Massachusetts. Like there was no difference. We were going to get that regardless.
Just rebranding everything while they're stripping
I see the script. Some little things I hold, like I can't vote in this I can't vote again in this country unless it would be like, no, I'm not going to go on a date with you again, because every time I go on a date with you, you leave me at the restaurant. Like you stand me up every single time. I cannot go on a date with you again. I can't do it again. I can't just put my name somewhere energetically. I can't put my currency into your system anymore unless your system's fixed. And I know a lot of people are like down with the system, anarchy. And I'm like, no matter how small the group, the group needs rules eventually, because somebody's always going to take more than they need, or somebody isn't going to be able to help, but we still want to take care of them. And so sometimes there's going to be rules. And I still will argue anyone, because people have brought up the Articles of the Confederation to me, or people will just be like, the Constitution's a psyop of its own, and, governments don't give freedom. I understand this.
God.
I understand all that. I understand that God gives you freedom, but we put a government by and for the people there to protect the freedoms. And anyone who thinks, oh, well, we can protect our own freedoms. Well, we can't. Look around. We've proven that we can't. We need to be more involved and take our government back, from the smallest little minute mayor's house all the way up to White Houses, if there is such a thing, or all the way up to Mar-a-Lago.
Now I'm because I have friends in the patriot movement, and when I say that, I don't mean like they're white militia men. They're men and women who are like you and me, who have families, who have children. They're playing their role. They're in their avatar in this world. They're spiritual, and they've taken up a cause that they feel that they're called to do. And I think it is important. I mean, you don't just sit idly by and say, you know what, just let all these people take care of it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go live in my intentional community, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to like, okay, that's cool. I mean, if that's what you want to do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, this is what you should be doing, but this is the other side of it, which is your universe and your community is the immediate place that you can have an impact on. And so, the politicians in DC, that's really their world for them. But this time, I believe, based on everything that I'm seeing in the forces at work, what we're doing is we're trying to reset everything to states' rights. But that ain't going to happen. It's going to be territories, districts, federations by the time it's all said and done. The displacement of people, concentrations of energy in New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta. Let's just say this on the whole. If you changed out management tomorrow with people, what is this whole time about? It's the dissolving of our institutions and the individuals who we thought were the authority figures discredited. Right? In other words, there's no higher ceiling it can go because it's tapped out. It's peaked. The governmental institutions that are in place globally right now will only be able to maintain their position going forward with greater force exerted on the population, for which they're losing control of right now. I mean, that's been happening for a long period of time. So what does that mean? Well, it means that those who believe, let's say COVID is phase one of a long game that is it's really a collective mind virus, if you will, of belief around authority, which if authority is dissolved, there's going to be a couple of things that will happen. But the thing that will remain is that authority will be transferred to technology, because technology will be brought in as a resolution to the inefficiencies of the past and the non-human elements of, this is like, it's even. There's no human error in it. It takes away all the bad overhead, all the corruption, shortens the endpoints, and gives you exactly what you want. And this is where the danger becomes, because in the cities, which are connected to concrete, EMFs, most of the environmentalists live in cities. They're not connected to nature like the people in the farms and the people out in the country are. But this is the two worlds, the duality that I'm talking about, concentrated in cities, in city life, hypersexualized, materialist, violent culture, people who are humans like us, but who their consciousness is not as evolved, because they don't see what the left hand is doing to the right, while the right hand, All the
Yeah, and it
stuff you
has
and
to
I
be when
know.
you get shut off in a city too. I always think about deep down in your human animal, you know, in that city, when you can't sleep at night or that anxiety seat sinks in, even if you're unaware of it, your species, your human knows. If shit hits the fan, there's not enough water there to provide all those people water. There's not enough fish there to provide all those people fish. There's not enough air there to provide all those people air. If shit hits the fan, you know that's too many humans living on top of each other. Instinctively, you know it. It must energetically. I don't even think we're supposed to be with a human living above us and next to us. Like that just seems like chaos. It's bad enough we all live in these square, brutal boxes that we shouldn't be living in. But then you think of like a high rise that, I mean, I live in Florida. I think one of the reasons that Florida is so free right now is because we deal with hurricanes every year. We lose our power. Every Floridian has lost their power for 2 weeks in their house and has had to live without any power. They have generators, they have water, they have MREs, they have all this. Every Floridian I know has this stuff on the reg. I talk to all my friends who have lost power up north. They don't even have a gallon of water. They don't have anything. I'm like, you guys have lost power up north in the wintertime. We can't get too hot in Florida. Worst case scenario, you're sweaty sleeping. Like it's just not anything. You guys actually should prepare better for no power, but it's just like the people in the cities have the least amount of preparation, and us as a society have to spend the most amount of resources to make sure they have what they need to survive, yet they're the ones that dictate all these little city center rat houses. They dictate how the rest of us work, but they're the ones with the mental impairment because it's not human to live on top of each other in a 30-story high rise that you need power to pump water to you. That doesn't even logically make sense. Even the idea of you have an electric car that you plug in, where does your electricity come from? Like, it's just everything that they take away and they put a computer in. If you can't just start your car, if anything happens, like if they can turn your car off with a computer, that's not freedom. There's a reason they didn't want the new generation of kids to write stick shift. The same reason they didn't want them or drive stick shift. The same reason they didn't want them to write computer or cursive. It's like they want the computer to do everything for you. They want the computer to see for you, and the computer can't see cursive and it can't drive stick shift.
Yeah. No, they're changing out the material world for ones and zeros. And that part of it. See, I think it's going to be a separate but equal tiered society in the beginning. I'm talking about the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, right? And there's going to be upheavals. When and how and why and all that, it doesn't matter, because the reality is that the more self-sustainable that you are and the community that you build around you. When I talk about community, I'm not saying, oh, I've got to go and find an intentional community. Where do I go? No, it's just simply this: community is within you. You're looking outside of yourself for a leader or somebody to tell you where to go and what to do. That's the problem. That's the problem we've always had. That's the problem that, in spite of our ancestors, they didn't have those issues. You know, my family bloodline is 5th century Celtic, and I look at that, and I look at my family history. I mean, not just recent, but over time, and I'm going, they were self-resilient people. I mean, brutal people. My God, the shit that they went through, but they had to forge ahead with creating a world for themselves, because they were in battle at all times and fighting this group and that group and starvation. And I mean, they had more brutal methods back then of being able to control and condition people. Of course, you had to take up arms to defend your land, right, from invading armies. But we were more in touch with the land. And this is my invitation, I guess, that I try to impart to people, is that your creation through imagination brings love into the darkest of places. And it has been true throughout all of human history that is the real illuminating light, not this false light that they're going to bring into being through the digital manifestation of their materialistic world. Now, we could say, oh God, we got another thing to battle after this. No, this is not going to be a fight that you win by protesting or telling everybody about all the horrible agendas that are coming. At this point, What I say to people is, look, yes, there's going to be more people who wake up. Yes, you should continue to reach out those you truly care for. Don't say you love humanity and say you hate human beings that you supposedly care for. This is the time to act out of love with care, which is doing, acts of doing God's work. Because why? You don't know what trajectories you are changing. When I look back at my life and I see all of the people that came in and out in moments, most people have heard my story, or I've not really given the whole story, but I've given it in pieces. I was abused as a child by my mother and father. Okay. And I had to spend 20 years of my 43 on this earth trying to heal that. Actually, my entire life.
Physical, sexual, emotional.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, World Series level. I had a mother who was, family of 9. She was the second oldest. And she was a tomboy, beautiful lady, little girl. If you'd seen her pictures, she was a prom queen.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her friends at her funeral 12 years ago. Unbelievable women. They loved her. She had manic depression. She had schizoaffective disorder, bipolar personality disorder, and raised me up until I was almost 17. My father was with me until I was 4. And the level of abuse and torture, I mean, I should have been a meth addict, a prostitute, half dozen things, statistically speaking. The reason why I'm saying this has nothing to do with that story. That story is the past. It's my past. But it was all of those people along the way who came in and out of my life, who gave what they could, not because they knew what the story was, not because they knew that I was going to turn out and be a film producer and be able to go live on an Instagram one day and tell everybody in the world. Nobody knows how it's going to end. Mm-hmm. You don't know how it's going to end. And you don't know when it's going to end. But what you can do is that every act of love that you give through care is like a deposit of gold in the bank for somebody's future, and especially a child. And I look at it like this holistically. I go, okay, we know what we're up against. We know what's going on. We have a pretty good idea. Some have some pieces over here. It doesn't matter. We can bring it all together. And at the end of the day, we can bitch, moan, and gripe and complain and say, fuck this, fuck that, and let it all burn. And you know what? You can. But all those people inside that building, they're going to need some land, some food, some water, some resources, some know-how. When they come running to you and all you're doing there is saying, see, I told you it was burning, you're not going to be anything to them. You're not going to have anything to offer them. You're not going to have the bridge that brings them, the refugee that you once were, like them, out to your community. And that's kind of where I'm preaching this, because we have to learn that all that you can put into destroying the system, that same effort, because plenty of people will go into it. If you want to look at Antifa and BLM, that energy is out there. The hatred and anger has nothing to do with leftism anymore. There are going to be people who lose their shit this year and into next year, and there's going to be acts of violence committed when things go south in people's minds, reality and in people's minds.
Yeah, I don't think we've even seen the mental high water mark of what the last 2 years have done to all of us.
25% of Americans are on prescription drugs. If that pipeline gets interrupted, you have not seen what happens when.
Where do a majority of those drugs come from? China. So yeah, it's like that pipeline's just waiting to get interrupted.
There's so many things that we're ignorant of that these people can play us for and are cashing out to create the society that they want, which is using technology to, again, modify behavior. This is really the bottom line that they want.
Mm-hmm.
These are the bigger way to look at it. And I'm not talking, again, this is not about presidents and governments. These are about dark forces that work through the whole thing. And what we're talking about is stimulation and sedation rituals, tranquilizing people, lowering them to a susceptible, programmable level like mass formation psychosis. It's not going to stop with COVID. It will go into the next phase or the next phase of what they're going to offer, because now they know how many people they've got, and they know who will be their bottom line baseline customer starting day one for the new product that they launch. And when and how and what, and warning people is not going to change it. What I'm saying is, you don't give up on people because they don't hear you today. You have to be the living example of the very thing that you are warning people about. You have to embody those things spiritually and divinely, but anchor them down here in the third dimension. On earth as it is in heaven. That's what we're here to do. And it doesn't mean that it's going to all work out evenly, but it's like, this is a soul harvest. The matrix is being used to harvest souls and possibly take them into other cycles of things that we don't know about. But that's the point, is that every child that comes into this world is sacred, is precious. And we must go back to natural law, which is not found in government. It can be, but if we're waiting for government to evolve to that level, forget it. You have unconscious men and women who are vying for positions of power in the world to have their little share of it. And because they don't know what they are, they're a soul. They are playing in the world of Satan. I'm talking about, on the whole, a world of unconscious men who seek power, who don't realize what they are. Therefore, they can serve evil thinking they are good. You and I both know that Fauci and all these other people and Gates and all that are evil based on the fruits that they bear in their acts. But what we don't realize is that inside the mind of each one of them, they believe that they are good. They think of themselves as a good husband, a good father. They think kindly of themselves in relation to their own thoughts. And guess what? They have a circle around them in their universe who agrees with them. This is how psychopaths and sociopaths live and breathe day to day without batting an eye about the shit that they're doing to you and I. This is why we can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Like just in an as above, so below, as in heaven and earth. That's why it's so important that we are healing from our childhood traumas, our narcissistic
100%.
abuse, all of this stuff, because us as a whole, we're being abused by sociopaths and narcissists, and we don't even realize it. But until us on this single level can say this about our parents or our loved ones or ourselves and start dissecting ourselves in these little ways, healing from those traumas and having the words of healing from those traumas is going to help the whole, because we're all going to need to heal from these traumas.
100%. And you will be the most valuable person in your local community because of that. And it's not I don't try to tell people what to do to heal. I can give them here's EFT, here's tapping, here's matrix reimprinting, here's EMDR, here's havening, somatic, do
you meditate? Do you pray?
Meditate, prayer. I'm not consistent on those things. I'll be the first to tell you, my experience spiritually has been, I brought it. I mean, I guess I brought it on myself, or divinely timed, or however it was, but I was the least disciplined when it came to, I only meditated my second time, had a mystical experience beyond words that I could imagine, saw things, felt things, had an aliveness come. My heart was fluttering. I had that night electromagnetic fields in my heart just pulsating at such a high level. I saw white light. I reset all of my electronics in the apartment, you know, when I was finished. I mean, I didn't know, you know, like just crazy shit, right?
But you
And
have that
I've
energy
had,
about you. Like if anyone's listening to this and you have this energy about you, I'm lucky enough on this show that I sit across from people and energetically I can feel like it doesn't matter how much time and space is between us.
yeah,
And energetically, wherever I've seen you on different podcasts, even when I'm watching you on somebody else's or listening to you, you just have this very bright light about you. Like whatever, and it's something that I've realized, like some of the brightest people out there, some of them, it makes me sad because their traumas and the darkness that has happened to them, they don't
yeah,
realize how bright they are. They don't
yeah,
realize that they're still shining through the murkiest murk, and that if we can just peel away some of that fog, their light is blinding. And it's
yeah,
something that I think so amazing also with you is not just that you're having words for these traumas, but I don't think there's a lot of men that have words for these traumas out there. It's like, woman, we're yucky. We go through our rapes. We go through our sexual stuff. It's like, especially with the sexual abuse, there's so much more room that we're open with it with each other. Where men, it's there's still such a stigma on being abused
yeah,
as a child and then having to take a whole sexual pronoun difference because of an abuse that happened to you as a child. It's just
yeah.
yeah, it seems like such an important voice out there, yours, speaking about this, but also that you just have this very radiating energy about you. And you
Thank
kind of
you.
look like Doctor Strange.
That's the first time. Uh, well, I mean, I, you know, I kind of thank you for those comments. I didn't think of myself that way as the male version of that, but yeah, I mean, this is, it was my story for such a long time. Um, and I was seeking an answer for so very long, and I didn't know the depths of it. But when I began to feel those releases, they're very, I guess this is the work that Joe Dispenza, and I'm not talking about Joe Dispenza the person, I'm talking about the information, because I don't like to assign people and personalities in relation to truthful things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you walk up to somebody like, for example, like Julian Assange, right?
Mm-hmm.
Putin's puppet, and or Patriot,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Is the information in those WikiLeaks real? That's what we
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with. How and why and what the motivations were and who it helped and who it hurt. It doesn't fucking matter. Is it true or not true? That's the reality. Okay. So the work of Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden, those three guys holistically, and there's more coming online every day, are talking about the quantum field. They're talking about healing. They're talking about our bodies and the temple that we are. And but here's what I'm gonna share a little bit, because I think this is important for men and women to both understand. Healing from your childhood is not perpetual pain and suffering, but it is not a destination that you arrive to as though, okay, now I'm healed. I when I say that, I can say that I have greater awareness today than I did 2 weeks ago, 3 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, like anybody can. And anybody can get up here and tell you what they think they are, and you can believe whatever you want. And this is not about judgment or anything, but I believe that this life that we're here to live is to teach us many, many, many things outside of trauma. But what I do believe, and this is where some people will differ, is when I look at the teachings of Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, Alice Miller, Lloyd DeMause, who's a psychohistorian, not as well known, but will be probably in years to come, and others, this is really about facing ourselves in the mirror. And this is the only conversation that you can have. I mean, working one-on-one with somebody else, because that trust and that love and that care that you have for someone else and that they have for you can ride through the darkest of places within yourself, places that you don't even know exist. When I started to begin to wake up, and when I say wake up, I'm not talking about a knowledge awakening, but an awareness within me of the darkness that was there, that was put there as a child, was when I was reading Alice Miller's book, Body Never Lies. And it was my third book of hers that I had read. I couldn't finish it. It was in 2013, and I had started to really feel these eruptions of anger in me. And I had a whole justification for being ready to beat the shit out of somebody who had violated me on the street. It's at an intersection where these cars pass all the time and they don't look for people who are walking. Anyway, that was my own little personal story that I told myself, that the next person that almost hits me, and if they stop their car, I can't wait. Like, I'd fantasized that I'm going to beat the shit out of this person, because I was sick and tired of people running that light and almost hitting me when I had the walk sign on. And it was a representation of all of my hatred of LA and the selfishness and greed that I saw there for years. Okay, that seems so petty and small. But when I read that book and I came to a certain passage in it, it spoke to my childhood to a T. And I will never forget this day. It was the day when I came to that last word. There was an emotional eruption like a volcano from my stomach all the way up to my head in a split second. And I was there watching my father when he was a man, when I was a child. So he had brown hair, not white hair or gray hair, brown hair, tied up, gagged in a chair with snot and blood coming down his nose over his gag and into his mouth. And there I was, standing above him with psychopathic eyes, whites in my eyes, thrilled, with two cables in my hands, with electricity, like electrodes, ready to torture and kill this man, my father. That happened in a split second, and this anger released that day. It was the first time that I consciously understood that I wanted to kill my father for what he had done to me. And the reason I'm telling you this is because that was the day I began to heal. Because I could finally face the truth about the very anger and hatred that I was manifesting outside of me, looking for an enemy to have justice over. And that very thing was inside of me, and it had to do with long ago. And from that moment on, even though it took 7 more years or 6 more years before I had that bigger awakening, I can tell you this for God's honest truth. What I went through in 2019 led me back to my father for 5 days at Christmas, because something told me to go see him. And I had the best 5 days with that man of my entire life. And it was a sad thing, because I knew that that was the relationship that I had always wanted, but could never have happen. When he died 2 weeks later, which was literally a year ago yesterday, or 2 years ago yesterday, I gave him the best hospice bed, the best send-off, and the best funeral with whatever I could do, for the very reason that the beautiful child that he was born as would have never done what he did to any of his children, including his son. And yet at the same time, I had to come to understand that he didn't give a shit about me in the way that I wanted him to. And this is the hardest part, because you can't ask somebody, well, you need to forgive your mom and dad. I tell people this very clearly, and Alice Miller talks about it in her books, it's the 4th commandment: honor your mother and father. And that is always used on the religious right in almost every which way as an authoritarian stance of the child must obey mom and dad no matter what they do. And to that, I will give a middle finger, only because they don't understand what they are saying to an abused child.
Mm-hmm.
What I came to understand that honor your mother and father truly meant was to live the embodiment of the very thing that they were not capable of doing. It ran in my family before it ran into me. And I will honor them for the two beautiful children that they were born as, that had no knowledge of what was going to happen to them and no concept when they were children and even young adults that they could have ever imagined that in following their concept, as distorted as it was, of what love was, that they would have children together that they would harm and abuse and torture on such a level that their children would be spending the rest of their lifetimes trying to overcome that and cope with it and deal with it. The reason I say this is because that blame, really the shame and the guilt that we all carry inside from them back then, is the real work that we have to do, so that we don't recreate that, not only in our own children, but our own relationships and the world that we love. Because if we're out there fighting against an enemy, somebody to hate, somebody to attack, a group over here, or this politic over here, or whatever it is, that anger that we feel, Satan has won that day. And I'm not trying to be biblical about this in the simplistic way. What I'm saying is, you have been denied your authority. You have denied your own authority to live that day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the world that I want people to really think deeply about, in terms of, what can I do? Well, what you can do is what you have right in front of you today. You have today, and there's no guarantee to tomorrow. So how can you live the fullest life that you want to live, in love and care and in service of other people? It isn't a position of lowering yourself, it's elevating yourself. It's the one where I had to look at and cry, buckets of tears, truly. The pain that we were processing with my friend that I worked one-on-one with last year, I felt generations of pain leave. And I'm not trying to say, oh, it's just a spiritual experience. No, it was and it was humbling, but I was there, and I knew in my way that Christ was with me the whole way. And that's the only way that I could make it out. I had 2 disassociative experiences last year that would be categorized as near psychotic breaks if I was not a more aware person of what was going on. This is where you can have schizophrenia, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized when I was going through those is that wasn't me. What I was experiencing was my body. My body didn't forget what had happened to me. My body did not forget the trauma. My mind had.
Mm-hmm.
And when the body and the mind were trying to reconcile that, all reality began to fail around me. And I had absolute paranoia and terror. I mean, this is dangerous stuff when you start talking about stuff like this. People are like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I'm saying, no, not everybody's going to go through that level. But that fear that's there, while you have forgotten it, your body hasn't. And this is where I would direct people. This is bigger than knowledge now. But people like Irene Lyon, she's got a website, irenelyon.com. She's got free resources there. She's the real deal. I know a lot of people right now are talking about, cold showers, polar, they're just fine, but there's not a quick fix. And the investment in healing yourself is that you will start to heal other people around you in ways that you don't even know. People that are connected to you from far away, people that you interact with, people who need love. And I ask people, I'm like, who wants to live in this world right now? Nobody. Doesn't matter what your understandings are. Nobody wants to live this way. But your love for yourself this is the greatest, to me, at least where I'm at right now, this is the greatest journey of a lifetime, is to know this body and this human being, John Paul Rice, that my spiritual self is having that human experience and is here to do, like I said, down here on heaven, so much, what's up in heaven and here on earth. And what I'm looking at is I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do. I think it's not a mechanical answer, but it's like ask, seek, and knock in the practical way and in the spiritual way. And I do believe there is a chance for all of us to change this world in a way that we have never seen before in human history.
How important is our imagination?
Our imagination is probably, in my view, the most important vehicle for any reality that you want to create. It is the child.
It is the child.
It is the child. It's the child at play. You know, we forget what we were. We forget what it was like to play. And we forget what it was like to be a child in most cases, because those things that are happening, let's say outside of us, take us away. If you want to look at the system for just a second, this is important. When you're a child, play is infinite. It's timeless. There isn't a concept of yesterday and tomorrow. I'm talking about when you're an infant and even a toddler. There isn't a concept of tomorrow. You talk to even a 4 and 5 year old on the phone, they're like, and you live on the other side of the world, they're like, come on over.
Yeah,
they don't understand. They're like, why aren't you here? Why can't you come? It doesn't make sense to them. So, but we put kids into school and we start scheduling play, right? And then we have time off. We've got summer break. And then we go into work. And then we only have 2 weeks of play. Most of that time, it's to get stuff done because we're so busy. So we shorten the play, we shorten everything, and we make it all about you trying to get out of the system by the time you figure out what you're worth or what you can get out. And I talked to a guy the other night. It's kind of funny. He's 56 and he's retiring, but he says, you know what? He goes, I'm happy to be out. But he goes, I didn't get that little fuck you money.
That's I call it the cover your nut money, the squirrel money.
Right. He's like, yeah. And I said, but at least you know that, so you're not going to the casino and trying to do that for the next 10, 20 years and lose everything. But that's what everybody, it's like bitterness, it's resentment. Mm-hmm. It's something we missed on our way out. And we've got to learn all the lessons of the past. Everything that came before is really no more. It never has been. But if we don't learn the lessons of how we got here, individually and collectively, but more so individually, how the hell did this happen, right? You got to start somewhere, and then you got to keep going and drilling down. And I say this, like, children are magical. But that imagination, here's where it really comes into play on a scientific level. This is a study that was done, and there was a TED Talk, I think 5, 6, 7 years ago. 98% of all children born have a creative genius level intellect. What? 98%. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that the same test that was administered to children at 4 and 5 years of age was also administered to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. What does that mean? That means that all of those children had what they call convergent and divergent thinking. And the way to think about that, it's not just right, left brain, but it's really like this. Your convergent thinking is you could consider it like your brake pad, right? You're stopping, you're slowing down. It's yes, no, maybe, some ideas. things that you'll say, no, I can't do that. No, I've tried that before. Oh, this might work. Okay, possibilities, but they're very limited. They're more literal.
Mm-hmm.
They're this or that, one or the other. Divergent thinking in children is like, that broom is a horse. And it is a horse because it's not a broom. I'm riding it. I'm playing with the dolls. The dolls are real. The whole story and the imagination, we're seeing it from the outside. We're going, they're just playing with their toys. No. You forgot. Those toys are real.
That's high magic.
High magic.
If we were two generals with a battlefield, we'd take those same figures and play out our war, like they would have 1,000 years ago. Yeah.
They're metaphors. And so what that means is that the child's imagination is infinite. But what our education system has done, going back over 100 years and before that really, is it was designed to fuse the two of them together so that you wouldn't have new possibilities. That's why meditation is so important. Hemisync, this is CIA documents, tell you that when you hemisync your brain, this right hemisphere of your brain is intuition, feeling, creativity, emotion. It's nonverbal. And what does it do? It detects anomalies. And what does that mean? When it detects anomalies, it comes up with new patterns. It tries to find new understandings and new meanings for things that are outside of the literal interpret. I'm being very simplistic here. Mm-hmm. If people want to get into this, the Ian McGilchrist's work is intelligent. It's incredible about the left-right hemispheres.
I know I'm going to make you put everything you talked about in your Telegram channel, and then I'm going to steal it and post it in my Telegram channel. Or you can come to my Telegram channel and post it.
Absolutely. No, I'll give you links to everything I'm talking about, because I think people need to just broaden their awareness of this if they haven't already done so. It's so fascinating to me. And what we're missing is to be able to take an idea that originates over here and put it with a feeling over here, which creates a future state in the quantum field of our hearts. Our hearts signal 3 to 4 seconds ahead of what reality we see. There's studies on this where you can actually anticipate something coming through, because it's detecting something in the field before we've actually conceptually read it. This is the psychic ability of children. Children have this ability. We have this ability, but we have a lot of blocks.
I knew I was going to see you in DC that day. I wasn't
really?
gonna. It's the same weird. I wasn't supposed to go. I had no reason to be there. I had $12 in my bank account. I had walked away from my real career to stay maskless in a world that everyone thought I was crazy. Like, just wear the mask. What's the big deal? But for me, it was always like spiritual over. I've been anti-vax for as long as I can remember. So that was never coming in my body regardless. So the mask was always very spiritual. I felt like I was taking part in a ritual just by putting it on. Like, I'm Bane. What am I going to a Rothschild's dinner? And I have to stand 6 feet apart from you, chant no justice, no peace, and take a knee? What are we resetting? Am I calling a God set into this world? Like, that's what I felt like I was doing. So
no, that's true.
I never had gone to any of the Trump speeches before. I just voted for him for the first time at that election. I thought Mike Pence was going to do exactly what he did. Like, if my conspiracy head was just there to witness the collapse of the Republican Party. Like, I'm like, yay, this will be fun to watch. Ha 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 ha. And I was and it was such a amazing day, all the energy leading up to it. As I was walking off, a minimum of 500,000 people in the field where we were. And then there was all the people up by the White House, all the people meandering through the ellipse. I looked up. I knew I was going to see the Edge of Wonder Boys. I knew I was going to see them. And through a crowd of people, I saw their two faces. And when I looked over, I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. And it was just like in a sea of invisibility, because when we don't know each other, we're all invisible faces. But the second somebody knows you, I'm like, oh. And from that period, even Lindsay from Rogueways, we became friends, because she reached out to me and was just like, I want to send you cash or something for this trip. And I'm like, don't worry. I feel weird taking money from anyone. That's not a currency I want from you. But I am feeling inclined, and I wasn't really spiritual. I'd done born again Christian stuff in my youth, but I grew up in Florida and just kind of was like, whatever. Even though I had looked into the darkness of everything, it was almost the darkness of the ritual is what made me think, oh my gosh, there's something light behind me. Thank goodness. Like it was like looking into the dark for so long made me realize there had to be something in the opposite. But Lindsay from Rogue Ways called me and was like, I'm going to do a reading for you. I'm like, I'd prefer that. And she said it was this incredible spiritual reading and that, it was going to be real magic and like just kind of, she put this protection around me. And as I was talking to her about it, and I was talking actually to one of my friends, Mary, on the phone. I was laying in my hotel bed in DC and I looked at myself and my legs were crossed at the bottom and my hands were all laid out like I was Christ on my bed. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And Lindsay's telling me about this magical day. And I'm like, what's about to unfold tomorrow? What is going to unfold from the shofar horns to the Chinese for Trump to some woman came up to me. She was at least 6 foot tall. I tell people, I'm like, I don't know. She was a Lemurian or a starseed or something. I didn't even believe in that stuff. She walked right up to me and she grabbed both my hands. And it was the coldest day still in my whole life. I still have never been that cold as I was that day. And she grabbed both my hands and she said, do you know who Maya is? And I was like, no, ma'am. And she said, it's time for you to meet Maya. And she grabbed my hands and she put them on the earth. And she said, that's Maya. She'll keep you warm. All you have to do is ask her. And I looked up at her and I kind of stood back up and she goes, do make sure you touch the monument before you go to the Capitol. And I looked up at the Washington Monument and there was at least 200,000 Chinese people standing around it. I was going nowhere near that monument. There was too many people for me to make it through. So I just kind of nodded my head at her like, okay, sure. As Trump was speaking and everyone started to peel off to go to the Capitol because, he came on late, I started to walk with everyone else like a little sheep. And then something in my head is like, no, you came here to watch Trump speak. You'll let him finish and then you'll go. So I was watching him speak. And when I turned around to look at the monument, no one was there. And so I went right up to it and I got to put my hands right on. And I'd been to Washington a few times in my life and I'd never been able to touch that monument, the Washington Monument before. And before this had happened, I had a witchy vibe that I was going to touch this monument and like some energetic monolithic thing. Like I kept having this vision of this monument and it didn't make sense because I wasn't spiritual magic. I didn't even believe in this stuff. And so I touched this stinking monument. And right when I touched the monument, it was like, and now you have to go lay your hands on the limestone of the Capitol. And then I just had that as my goal. And I just had to walk all the way. And it was like, as I hit another spot where my instincts were all telling me, be scared, be scared, be scared. Don't keep walking. This is a war zone. What are you doing? And so silly. I bought an $8 scarf and hat, which ended up being the Antifa outfit, but I didn't know I looked like accidental Antifa. So every time I kept walking, they just kept opening doors for me. Like a dude would just be like, free tours, go on in. Free tours, go on. So I ended up right to the archway of the Capitol and I hadn't worn a mask and the whole time until all of a sudden it was like, because there was flash booms and smoke, but most of it wasn't real. It was all for the television cameras. But some of those tear gas canisters were very real. And it was the first time in my life that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe through my own saliva. But I did get to lay my hands on the monument. And I just remember how cold. And I was like, oh, this is like limestone and granite. Like my head, like marble, limestone, granite. It was like it was doing a computer run of this building. And I was just like, okay. And it was just like, okay, I can go now. It was just like this real big wave of, I remember looking at the Jewish horns blowing and I remember seeing all the different people and a flag of every nation. Like, what is happening right now? And my favorite part of the whole day, when everyone just stopped, everyone, it didn't matter what the chaos seemed. Everyone just stopped and sang the national anthem. Everyone, every cop, every person, and there hasn't been one person from that day that I've seen the video. And I know it happened. I didn't create it in my head. We all stopped. Like you hear that story of Christmas Day on a battlefield. We all stopped moving and we all sang. And so I'm like, because, they were jamming our phones so much that day that
Yeah.
and taking, I'm like, gosh, did we all get videos taken off our phones from that day that we don't even know about? But there was such, as crazy as that day was and so much about it, my instincts, my human instincts were like, be scared, run, be scared, run, be scared, run. But there was something magical about my kid that were like, you're okay, keep going. You're okay, keep going. And like the universe kept giving me little signs, like all the birds would fly that way. And I'd be like, I'm going to walk and follow the birds. I watch my videos now and I even hear a guy, like I must have just been walking with my phone to my side and not even paying attention of what was going on around me. And I can hear clear as day in my video, let's go back to the car and get our Kevlar vests. Like if I would have known Trump was behind a plexiglass, it might have changed my whole energy for the whole day. But I didn't
Wow.
know any of this stuff that day. I just felt like
Yeah.
so peaceful and so innocent. I was more in awe. But the scariest part was walking back from the Capitol to Maryland. Like, because, they shut down all the public transportation and our hotel, our Airbnb got canceled the day of because, it was all coordinated by them to make it as hard as possible on any Trump, quote unquote, supporters to be at the Capitol. So we ended up getting a hotel in D.C. And so we had to walk through the ghetto of Washington, D.C., as they were calling us KKK members, all the way back to Maryland. And it was just me and a
Wow.
girlfriend. So it was like, I even remember looking at her. I'm relatively a butch woman and she's like short hair and stuff too. I remember at one point walking behind her and looking at her and say, can you walk like you have a dick between your legs right now? Can you like spread out? Like, can you be a little more butch? I feel like you're like hippie. Like you're walking, like I feel like, girl,
Wow.
we got to take up space right now. We can't be walking like two broads. Like, I was so glad I wore my baggiest jeans that day. Anyways, yeah, that was a whole long rant about the magic of it all. But I didn't even
No.
believe in any of that stuff until I was like sitting in the middle of the craziest moment of my whole life. Like I was outside myself. Like, are you going to die on these Capitol steps? What are you going to do if you get inside? I remember thinking, all right, you have a battery pack, you have a bottle of water, and you have a hot dog in this bag. And everything told me, if you make it in those doors, you're going to be in there 72 hours. It was like this weird thing. Like, what are we going to do once we get inside? You don't need to go inside.
Wow.
Remember Vincent Fusca? Do you remember that
Yes.
guy? I saw
Yeah.
him on the Capitol.
Yep.
And he was taking everyone's cameras and pointing them out to the crowd. He was on a scaffolding and he was taking people's phones out of their hands and pointing them toward the crowd and then giving them back, pointing them toward the crowd and giving them back. Because I think that's all the footage that still has yet to make it out that will show the
Right.
different whole perspective of that day than the,
Yeah.
3 layers up against the Capitol. Because the shaman dude, he is not one of us. Like all these key people that they put out, like, look at, and they were never one of, they were not one of, they aren't a patriot. That's one of the infiltrators.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like even the BLM guy the footage came out and they still say that he wasn't involved. And it's life is stranger than fiction. Real life, reality is stranger than fiction. The way that all of that unfolded and the people involved and the things that occurred and what people saw and what people think they saw and what people say they saw. It's like I tell people, your government's corrupt, the media lies to you, but somehow on this particular one day, this one story, they're giving you the truth. And I will be forever grateful for the fact that day I met, some great people. The day before I met some great people, and the days after I did. It was probably the scariest time between that day and the 20th. And then after that, I had to just let everything go. I could not. I was done with chasing. I was done with trying to figure out the storyline. And when people said, no, John, blah, 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 they're going to do this. It's like, you know what? Just I'll find out the day it happens, and then I'll know it's true. I'm not going to be playing guess it anymore. I'm not doing predict it.
Yeah, I don't try to predict people, dates, timings, or any of that stuff. But one of the things that I
learned my lesson.
Yeah, Red Pill Babe, she was also there that day, and I always give her credit when I bring this up. But she says that, you know, when Trump tweeted out, "Remember what happened here today." Like, remember what happened here today. Her whole thought is that day was us, to remind us how powerful we are and how quickly we can congregate at a moment's notice without even knowing why we all went. But it was there and it was real. And we decided we were all going to go before Trump said he was ever going to speak. There was something different about that day and the way that it all laid out, and the powers that be, how they kind of took over that day. Here's a couple weird things, because you are a movie guy, that I would love to talk to you about this day.
Okay.
A couple of things that I really remember about the day is there weren't enough porta potties for people.
Right.
There was no food at all.
Correct.
If you were looking for merch, it was all like Queen, royal type. It wasn't Trump and Biden stuff. It was all like anti-royal Tea Party. Like, it was weird, like posters. It didn't seem right. I remember walking over to a table. I have a pineapple thing. I love pineapples. I eat pineapple every day. And so I'm in DC and I see this huge pineapple on a table. I go up to the dude and I'm like, "How much for that pineapple?" He looks at me like, "What?" All he has is a couple pieces of fruit on this table. And then he's setting up a table. And I'm like, "How much?" He's like, $50. I'm like, $50 for the pineapple? He didn't want to sell it to me. Now I was thinking about it. Oh, that was a concessions table. That was a concessions table. The pineapple was going to be the center of it. It wasn't for sale. The other weird thing I bought in DC, besides my accidental Antifa, which I've been to a million concerts in my life, I've never got an $8 scarf and hat. That's made in China, Trump gear, made in China. And it's all like a fluorescent color red. It's not the right color red at all.
Right.
The number one thing I bought that day that makes no sense unless I was on a movie set, and those were for extras. There was this child, how you were saying every person you met that day was representing 100 people that couldn't come. There was this woman and child who drove from Washington State, and they drove through the night, and they didn't know why they were there, but they were sitting in this cold ground. And she was probably like in her 40s. Her daughter was maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, freezing cold. They sat out there all day. So I saw this trailer, like a lawn trailer full of chairs. I was like, did I just manifest this? "Hey, buddy, how much for chairs?" He turned around and looked at me and he's like, "They're not for sale." And I'm like, "What do you have a whole trailer of chairs? Just let me buy 2 off you, like old camping chairs." So he sold me 2 chairs for like $15 a piece. I brought them to the lady and her kid, and then just carried on about my day. Didn't even think about those chairs. Now I'm like, those were extras chairs. That's exactly, I've been on so many movie sets when I lived in LA and did extra work. There was a craft table that we were allowed to go to that was different than the main stars. We had chairs that we had to go to that was different than all the main stars. And where we sat was off camera, all kind of in together in a group. And then they'd call different groups of us when it was our time to go up and do our, why were all those chairs there that weren't for sale? I'm like, the whole thing was a movie setup. And now I really think about, they were going to do that day because it's all 1/6 in ritual, and maybe 1/6 is Jesus's real birthday. Maybe that's a different theory for another day. But they were going to do the All Kings Day, pull off this 1/6 trauma that still to this day they're running with the rhetoric, bigger than 9/11, bigger than 9/11. It's as big as 9/11. It was the worst attack on American soil since 9/11. No one died that day. We weren't supposed to show up on the set. That's what I think happened. I think a movie was going to be shot there that day, and whoever the powers that be are, good guys wise, they just got the right couple of digital soldiers, and then there had to have been a spiritual download that we were all getting from something bigger than ourselves. But it was so important, not that we just show up with our bodies that day and interrupt the movie, but show up with more cameras than them and make sure they couldn't pull it off. And so it was like we used, because they can't create anything that we can't take over, because good always beats out darkness. So it doesn't matter if all their little corrupt wires, we take over this and we take over this. And so something about that day that, I just always give to Red Pill Babe is that Trump says, don't forget what happened here today. And no, we shouldn't. We should never forget it and not let them rewrite what happened, because the beautiful hours that happened before, whatever the TV cameras wanted you to see, I still can't wait for the day that all that footage comes out, because I know everybody's sitting on it, and it's hard for a lot of the people that were there that aren't in the movement like you or I, because they were real American patriots, moms, dads, kids, all different colors, creeds, sexualities, and they were called terrorists on every news forum you can turn to, just for going there and watching their real president speak of their real country. Take off all the things of the election day, take off all the other stuff. Just an American citizen went to watch their president speak, and they were called a terrorist.
Yep.
For the whole news.
100%.
It broke my heart. That part actually hurt my heart. And I remember watching Alex Jones when I was early 20s telling me this is going to happen one day. And I was like, well, I don't care, because I'm not a patriot. I don't care, Alex Jones, because I don't like America and I want to get the hell out of here anyway. And now I was like, oh, I'm the terrorist? You're the terrorist? Like, the people I know that were there that day were the people who've been putting the money where their mouth is and standing up and doing the protests and going to their city halls. We're the terrorists? And you guys, all the out there, are going to let us be called terrorists, even though we were all there for the 100 of you. And you guys all let us be called terrorists, even though you know that day didn't go down like that, because you've all talked to me. And none of you stood up for me. Your silence weighs more than your words ever will. That's how that day was heartbreaking to me. I felt like I needed to go through it, my own shadow work of realizing that, yep, I'll take a saber to my neck for whatever this truth is, even if I'm standing alone, even without clout, even if I'm called a fool for doing it. And I had to kind of go through all those things by all the people I thought were standing right along with me. And they weren't standing with me anymore. It was like I was the silly one for like having an ideals of freedom or America, or, oh, you're silly. You're silly for thinking that there's a good guy out there. Like, is that silly? Shouldn't we think that there's a unsecret society of good guys?
Well, and it's sort of like as people got upset about things not turning out the way they did, I saw, many people online, and it's really not to debate this or that in terms of what it was or is or will be, but it was like people took a crap all over the general belief in the Q movement, and here's what I kind of stepped back. So I said, you're basically taking a shit on people who wanted to end the corruption and the deep state, the government. That's ultimately what you're taking a shit on. People who believed that there was a chance to end the deep state. And I'm like saying, just think about what you're really crapping on, because it's to get your political rocks off. And I'm not defending what those people are, the groups, the individuals, the people that make them up, this, that, or the other. It's like, I'm just saying, what was the impetus of it? Because they believed that there was a chance that what we've seen manifest in front of us now, literally and figuratively, like pedophiles being arrested at CNN in our media, and today, Clinton, one of Clinton's people, it's like, what is it that you're really complaining about? We could argue all day, say, well, they didn't do this and they should have done that. And
Hillary's not arrested on this date or whatever the.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is like, at the end of the day, this is a cheap shot at people who stood up globally, not just in the United States, globally. And believed. But I'm kind of like with you on a couple of things, and this is really where it gets kind of nutty. But spiritual magic by the occult, and I'm saying the dark occult, This is not the people in government. I mean, there are some, but because they're mostly controllers. Everything is a ritual in that world. And it's controlled, again, it's not Trump the mastermind or Biden. I mean, you call Biden a mastermind, or even Kamala Harris. They're just really unconscious. I mean, when I say this, I not to diminish who they are as human beings, but and I'm not defending them either. I think they can do that plenty and have to answer for their lives. But at the end of the day, all of what I've seen before this time and now is a dress rehearsal. It's sort of it's the words that summon things into existence, like dark winter. Consciously, so we think of things like predictive programming in film, but
the Great Reset. I'm like, that is
right.
the Great Set. You really might as well just be in ancient Egypt and just calling on Set. Like everything
Right.
about it, even down to the no justice, no peace, is a chant.
Right.
No justice, no peace.
And so these things have energetic values that so there's the action and the ritual, but then there's the echoes of that carry into the next waves that will be then created again through the unconscious spiritual realms. Those unconscious spiritual realms exist in our minds. That's where we can get the predictive programming, but it's not just priming your brain to accept it when you see it. It's also working through the unconscious mind of you in your subconscious. This is where they gather up their energy and get ready to start using it and utilizing the belief in that through psychic content that you have. So like let me just like put it like this, like Biden president, okay, for or against doesn't matter. Your belief that he's president and that he has power is what makes it real. In other words, on a smaller level, AOC, okay, could talk endlessly about AOC, but at the end of the day, if she lives rent free in your head, you are giving that paid politician by the billionaire class energetic value as a icon. So her narcissistic energy that's out there is drawing in narcissistic energy towards her. That's her magnetic value. She is a true believer. She is an unconscious person. She says, you could go down the list of all the things she says, but at the end of the day, she is a useful tool in the toolbox in order to make spiritual magic reality. Green New Deal doesn't matter what it was 4 years ago, what it was last year, do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Like Green New Deal. So these are all things that have energies that are energy, frequency, and vibration. Words, text, they all have energetic values. Symbols, glyphs, seagulls, all of that. That's part of the magic that is part of the matrix in terms of its hold on us.
Spells,
so even though
spelling.
We're fighting against these powers and forces, really energetically, we need to me, detach ourselves so that they don't live rent free in our heads, because that's really where the magic comes in. And when they lose their value, they will try to trade them out. But if we don't go back in, see, this is the whole trick. If I trade out management and I give you a new face, so Jack Dorsey's gone, Eric Schmidt's gone, Susan at YouTube, like you start removing all these people, and we give you new faces, and we give you new principles, new ideas, new possibilities. We're playing the same game again. We're giving our authority and our consent over without even telling them, because we're giving our authority and our power away. We're just trading it out. This time is different though. And I'm going to be very specific about this. The reason why this time is different is because everyone's being given, for the first time in probably 250 years, a free will choice. This is the time where you actually have free will to choose what kind of world you want to step into that'll be in response to this one. Many will go, as I believe, there will be a lot more people who are awakened who will walk into the next iteration of whatever they're going to roll out. The Great Reset and the Great Awakening, when put together, because it's a duality, it's a dualistic system. And in that duality, the co-creation of those two energies, Klaus Schwab and the globalists, and whatever you want to call this other thing over here, collectively is greater than the globalists, right? Mm-hmm. But their energy
has been feeding for so many thousands of years.
Right. So this over here and this over here, let's just say one's a Satanist group and one's a Luciferian group. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. Satanists are murderous, bloodthirsty killers. Mm-hmm. They wear their perversions on their sleeve. They don't give a fuck. Luciferians are enlightened. They're knowledgeable. They're smarter. Communists, Nazis, very different.
Yeah.
The Nazis were able to rebuild Germany after the First World War and put in the perfect society. Whereas the communists are all about domination, control, scarcity, fear. So I'm just saying this as we move forward with these energies. I'm not talking about what one is or isn't, but what I'm saying is the vigilance that we have in the awakening is to not deceive ourselves yet again. Because what evil believes, I'm talking about what you're seeing unfold in our time, is the manifestation of evil becoming more conscious of itself through mankind and material. Also, on the light is becoming more enlightened and awakened. These are the forces of God going up against each other. For what? I don't know. When and how? I don't know. But I'm saying evil is materializing. They are cashing out and reaping all of what they have sown in mental health in children, in the weaponization of children's minds to reduce them, to reduce their value. If there is something, I guess, to be looked into, is that the whole thing we were talking about, healing from trauma, is that the future generation of children is going to need us more than ever before. Not because we're going to have a technological solution, but we have to have a human solution. And that human solution is the healing powers that are in you and me and in each and every single one of us. And what we can do and what kind of world we can bring in, we can heal those children. We can let them know that there is a world that loves them, not one that just wants to use them and suck all the life out of them and throw them away. There is a speech from Ronald Bernard in 2008 on the International Tribunal of Justice. I don't know anything about the International Tribunal of Justice. People try to always say, oh, they're a front for this. Ronald Bernard is not a front for anything. Ronald Bernard is the real deal. I've met him. Ronald Bernard is the real thing. And you should go and listen to it says former Dutch banker, before they pull it down off of YouTube or BitChute or wherever. You should listen to those 33 minutes and go back to them and remind yourself of what he said in 2018. 2018, and he told me this very clearly. He said, John, I'm all for Trump's presidency, 100%. But understand that these Luciferians are very, very clever. And one of the things I wanted to share with you, this was back in 2013, October 13, 2013. I just want to read this. This is a post that I did. It's going to just take a minute, if you don't mind, if I can read it.
Sure, no problem.
It said, I went to hear Chris Hedges speak at Santa Monica today and came away with the strengthening of my beliefs based on facts and experience. The most important awakening that must occur in our lifetimes is an understanding that we align ourselves unconsciously to our parents and will continue to doing so until death. For those who have damaged childhoods, until we are willing to see the truth about our childhood and our parents' illnesses, we will continue down this path of society's self-destruction. The refusal to see ourselves in this connection is expressed in our anger, hatred, and rage at those we perceive weaker or feel responsible for our pain. It is in the excuses we make for pseudo mother and father figures when they won't sacrifice themselves or do right for us. The answers will never be given by those in power, our heroes, icons, celebrities, role models, and leaders, as they are a reflection of the world we live in and continue to escape into as an illusion from our own reality. Lloyd Demas on the history of childhood and warfare. This is a guy that I hope more people in your audience come to know. Lloyd Demas. He says, the history of childhood is a nightmare from which we have only recently begun to awaken. The further back in history one goes, the lower the level of childcare and the more likely children are to be killed, abandoned, beaten, terrorized, and sexually abused. It is our task here to see how much of this childhood history can be recaptured from the evidence that remains to us. That this pattern has not previously been noticed by historians is because serious history has long been considered a record of public, not private events. Historians have concentrated so much on the noisy sandbox of history, with its fantastic castles and magnificent battles, that they have generally ignored what is going on in the homes around the playground. And where historians usually look to the sandbox battles of yesterday for the causes of those today, we instead ask how each generation of parents and children creates those issues which are later acted out in the arena of public life. He wrote that 50 years ago, roughly. We're coming into a time where the past has been erased and it will be buried, and it will be launched into a new time illusion story. The question that I ask is, will we have learned our lesson of history, the repetition, the cycle, and will you be a cycle breaker? And will you break those loops that have been set forward for us, all of our traps, both aware and unaware, to see where we came from and to transcend and transmute the suffering of the past of our ancestors who did not have the utility, the tools, or the words to begin to describe their trauma. When we put words to the pain and suffering that we have experienced in the quietest of places, we begin to liberate ourselves, to give a voice to the voiceless, to give a voice to that pain that is unconscious behavior. And that unconscious behavior, when it's given righteousness and has anger behind it, can manifest into hatred and three-dimensional violence. And we are going to see the manifestation of that, but don't think that you're any separate from it or any different from it, because every single one of those people out there that's marching, that's burning down property, that's saying, fuck the system, they were a child one time. And we don't see what he's talking about. We didn't see what happened in their home. Again, this is not an excuse for people's bad behavior, but until we learn that that child from day one, the moment of conception to the moment it is born, that is sacred. That is a sacred, sovereign being of God, of a creator of heaven and earth. And if we do not put all of our efforts in thinking about how we shape the world, not when the child becomes 18 and is legal, but before we go up the stream, before they fall over that waterfall, and we see who is throwing them into that river, and we put a stop to it. Catching all of them before they go over the waterfall is great. It's fine. It's wonderful. We need people to do that. We need loving arms and hands, as many as possible. But if we don't go to the root cause, here's what I will tell you. The devil's greatest trick was to convince us that he never existed in each of us. And if you don't look at yourself and realize that you can be a monster too, you're the worst kind of monster, like Jordan Peterson said, because you are the most unconscious monster. And it's not that we're monsters by definition. It's just that our denial of that reality and saying, I don't have any responsibility in any of this, allows for somebody else to come in and dictate to that child what will happen to it. The void that is casted into that child, the holes that are there, the loneliness that is there, is going to be protected by a shield of that child's terrors. And if you don't speak to that child, if you don't love that child, somebody else will, or this world out here will do it for you. And you're going to see the manifestation of that in this lifetime with all of these kids that are on this thing 24/7 like this, as they're eating their food across the table from their parents, if they even have that time. And I'm saying that because you and I and everybody else, no matter whether we have children or not, come in contact with them all the time. And we kind of put our blinders on to not see the reality of what's going on around us. But that future, that's the future of our children, is happening right in front of you right now. The future is right now, the present moment. It's a gift. That's why they call it the present. And what we've done, what we have had done to us, is a death ritual 2 years ago that started, which was to give everyone the fear of dying globally, which disrupted all of our illusions. We no longer had a future that was certain. And now we had to deal with the uncertainties of the internal state, which was all of our fears that were manifested during this time. Our addictions, suicide, drug overdoses, obesity, domestic violence, human trafficking, homicides, you name it, have all exploded. And it's a mental health crisis on an epic level that we have not seen fully manifest yet.
Agreed.
So we have plenty of work to do. And it is not going to come from the system. It's going to come from your lived experience, my lived experience, and what we've been able to transcend and transmute. And we can give that to other people. That's the food. It's like, what I speak about authentically is not what I read about Lloyd DeMaz or Alice Miller or saw at Chris Hedges' speech. Those are metaphors to my own internal understandings through which I went through those processes in order to learn from them on such a level that I could take that knowledge, put it into practice, and do something with it in my voice.
The voice is important. The human vibration. If you know who human vibration is, she says that that's why we're here, and our throat chakras are golden trumpets, and that's the way that God calls the angels home, is because the golden
that's
trumpets.
Absolutely right.
And so when we heal aloud, we help others from not dying silently. And I think it's important when we heal aloud too. Like, I love the idea of, you were saying, like, I'm putting words that maybe my grandmother never had. I'm putting words that maybe my grandfather never had the courage to find, or the education to find, or lucky enough that I have friends now all over the world because of this contraption, that I can be awkward and honest and authentic. And then if you're awkward and honest and authentic, somewhere between us, God exists. And it's a new God than was ever created before. We just made God bigger because we were just both being real and plugged into source, and you were plugged into source. Now something was created here that didn't exist before, like a birth was given. And I love the Reiki idea that when you heal 30,000 other people, 30,000 forward and backward. And so if there's 7.8 billion people on the planet, we only have to heal 200,000 of us. And then we'll heal everyone.
I like the numbers. I like those odds.
Two things before I get you out of here. One, I was talking to my bestie, Megan from Truezilla, and you were on their show sometime over the summer, and she's been going through her own healing. And whatever you said on the show, it was something about adults kind of finding their playtime, and something she kind of found. She was like, I went and got I was at the fair with my kids, and I always wanted the inflatable dolphin, but I never got it as an adult. But because John Paul Rice was on the show, I was like, I'm getting myself the inflatable dolphin. So I just thought it was so awesome. Like, not just our kid imaginations, but playtime's so important. Be silly, be goofy. Let's laugh until we cry instead of, the other way around.
Dance, move, whatever.
It's all magic.
You gotta Yeah. Put your program in. You know, what kind of program do you want to be on? Program yourself, rewire your brain. This is all, I mean, I don't do it religiously as much as I probably should, but you have to give yourself grace. You cannot, you're meant to get out and stretch and grow. Put your feet on the ground. I know it's hard during the winter because it's cold as hell outside. Get a grounding mat. You know, you got to learn some biohacks in there. And it's not so much hacks to get you, but you have to seek this information out. It is out there. It's out there now. And one day it may not be out there. I don't know. I don't know how it'll all go with the internet and everything else. But what I'm saying is that the more people who do these practices and start incorporating into them this play, especially as adults, we forget, and the world is not going to give it to you. They will not do that at all. But your happiness you can create. I don't believe that happiness has got to be this sort of like, it is fleeting, yes. So you can't like hold on to it. But it's like a child's mind. I've seen kids play before where they're playing together in the little sandbox or whatever, and then the other one goes away and the kid's like, you know, kind of sad for a minute, but then it finds somebody else to play with. This is what I'm talking about. We are hardwired for this love. We're seeking it out, but it's not going to be consumed. It's got to be created. So her little self as an adult wanting to get that toy. I mean, I'd love to talk to her about what she went through, what that experience was like. But it's like, yeah, gift yourself some things. You know, people use the word self-care and they kind of throw it around. And, you know, I don't try to get into the what you should do, but I'm like, give yourself a break. You know, just a little bit, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Even if you can't manifest something physically that makes you excited, you know, clear your mind, turn this damn thing off, put it in airplane mode and throw it over there for a half hour and just let your mind wander. Don't look to stimulate from outside. This is where, like, you'd be surprised how much we are stimulated. And then when you take all of that and remove it, holy shit, you got to deal with yourself now, right?
Yeah.
And what thoughts are going on inside of there. And I'm just saying it's a muscle we haven't used in a long, long time. We need to start exercising it. Little by little, 5-pound weights, 10-pound weights, then 15. I'm not talking about physical exercise now. I'm just talking about using this big ass muscle in here. This is a quantum computing machine. There's a reason why DARPA exists. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why they want to get inside of this thing and they can't figure it out. They can't understand it. And they're trying to, like hell, to crack that thing open. They want into your head because it is greater than any other computer. It's greater than any other computer that they can create. Even with the superpowered computers can't do what this thing does. They want to convince you that, you know, we're these reductionist beings, that we're just so lucky to have all this technology around it. But that's only because we haven't realized our true power inside. And I'm saying the evidence is overwhelming out there. Like I said, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, just the fundamentals on what he's talking about, heart, mind, coherence. You've got 40 to 30,000 brain cells in your heart. You have a magnetic field in your heart that is 10 to 50 times greater than your brain. What? And you've got also this gut down here that has intelligence in it too. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, if you start looking at all the agendas, everything is to take your health away from you, your mind away from you, your heart away from you, and replace it with something else. So they're very crafty because they know your brain better than you do. The 10 laws that govern the subconscious mind, everybody should look them up and know them just out of, you know, curiosity, because those are the rules that govern everything. What is real, what is imagined, is treated equally in our subconscious mind. Fear, imagined or real, is experienced like it is real, whether it is in front of us or behind us, in the past or the present, it's treated the same. That's just one of them. There's 9 others. But these are the things, like, you have to get in touch with this machine here. This biological AI is greater than any artificial intelligence that they can create. This biological being here has more energy, more power, and they know that.
And it's one of a kind. It's
And it's one of a
100% unique, and it's the only cord to source that will ever be created for the information that you have to give to all of us. So if you're not
That's correct.
authentic and living in your full self, you're just regurgitating somebody else's code, and we're never going to get what's supposed to be. And I feel like we all expand God when we plug in and ride authentically and open our big mouths with those awkward words and tell people we love them and just call them out of the blue because we saw something that reminded us of them and they were like, oh my gosh, I just saw something that reminded you. Get the validation always when you play in that kind of metaphysical, energetic world. And always when you do it with like, I'm thinking of this person and you can feel your heart blow up, always validated. It's always validated. They're always thinking about you too. There's always something that's going on. And they've kind of made us believe, they're almost convinced. That's where I think the synchronicity algorithm thing, they're going to do that so they can slowly take that from us and make anyone that thinks that, oh, we're connected. They don't want you to have that connection. They don't want you to even have it with
Telepathy.
your family. Yes. It's
Telepathy,
so,
psychic abilities.
yes, it's all so much more real than people think it is. And it's made to be crazy, but kids don't even need to speak. How often do you watch two little 2-year-olds? They don't speak the same language you or I, but they're communicating just fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They have their own language, everything. They're in a alpha, what is it? Theta and delta brainwave state the first 6 to 7 years. And what is that? That's meditative state. That's meditative and sleep state. That's hypnotic. That is 100% psychedelic.
So why would you also want to be around it? Like the energy of it is the same. Like that's where we all need. That's why they wanted to break us from this whole field that we're not in communities even anymore, even in our neighborhood. Like I grew up in a way that my mom could sit with the lady across the street and the lady down the street and all the kids could run. And if my mom needed to go inside, there was a mom that would watch us and other adults could go do adult stuff. And there was an adult around watching us. And my mom trusted that lady and it was all fine. And there was like good environments. Not that there obviously isn't monsters inside our own houses and neighborhoods. Those usually are the people. But there was just some sense of community that we all were looking out for each other. Like somebody had, now there isn't that community anymore. Anyone I know raising kids feels like they're doing it alone. They don't even have their parents there, their siblings there, or anyone. There isn't aunts and uncles. I had so many aunts and uncles. Every one of my mom's best friend, I still call an aunt to this day. Now there isn't that for kids anymore. They barely, a lot of them haven't even gotten to see their grandparents in 2 years.
Yep. There's, well, I don't know how that's going to play out, but I definitely think we're going to be going through a period of grief here. And the real question will be, is it met with forgiveness and reconciliation or more bitter division? I don't know the answer to. I can't, the truth of the matter is it's up to you. It really is. The world that we live in today is our social cohesion and the family and the social cohesion has been stripped to tatters. It really has. It's been broken into pieces and fragments and shattered and everything.
I know, and however, it's so crazy to think that a bunch of latchkey kids are going to be the thing that brings back the family unit, but that's why it was all by design. They, took both of our parents out of the house. We were sat in front of the TV and had it raise us. We all grew up with the same zeitgeist. We all have the same music. It's not country, it's not hip hop, it's not rock and roll, it's not it's like the same four. It's like we all picked a script, and depending on if we were turning on MTV or turning on Nickelodeon or turning on the news, the script was fed to us and, put us into our little box even tighter. What college we went to, the group of friends we made, put it a little tighter. And it's, all of our programming, it's just breaking the programming.
Yeah.
It's breaking it. Playtime as an adult is breaking the programming.
It's 100% correct. Yes. I think there was a really astute gentleman that was on Del Bigtree. I forgot his name. He's a doctor. And he was in California during this whole crap. And he said, what I ended up having to do is I had to go online and start creating community. I had to find like-minded people that understood, like at a baseline, what values I shared. And it may take, like, I mean, look at it this way. I was in California and up until 2019, end of 2019. And all of my friends did not live in Los Angeles by the time I left. They were all over the country and some in the world. And I'm having to, I've been without circles of friends in the same way that, a lot of people have had their friendships, their families and stuff, especially during this time in the last 2 years, either being apart or distanced or, arguing and bitter. And, that's kind of why I did the movie Game Day. But it really was about the truth finally being spoken. And last thing I guess I want to share is that
Real quick about Game Day.
Yeah.
I love how many issues are in a family's household that have nothing to do with politics, that have nothing to do with coronavirus, that it could be any family in any city, USA, during any 10-year period of time. And all these things, each member of the house is the hero and the villain, the devil and Jesus, so to speak, both sides of the mirror. Mm-hmm. And each of them, I don't know. I liked the idea, as I don't want to give away anything, but I just like the idea that it isn't even always tied into a bow at the end, but it doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean it's good, but it just is sometimes.
Yep. Yeah. It was, that's a very astute description of the film. And I think that what you said is that there's something, when you watch that film, you're going to see parts of yourself or parts of other people that you've known or other families in there. Culturally, it's the Philadelphia Italian American, very passionate.
I wanted to just brutal. Be, I'm on this one side. Oh, I'm on this person's side. Oh, I'm on this person's side in this argument. But then you'd find out a little more and I'd be like, oof. Why is she being such a bitch? Oh, now I know. Like there's this whole it's like every layer of the onion that keeps unfolding. And then I just love too, just the tiny things of those moments where you're just getting out of bed, just staring at yourself in the mirror. You just turn off your keys and you're holding your steering wheel and taking those 4 breaths because you have to go inside. Like, it doesn't say anything in those moments, but I just like that they exist in the film of just like, those are the ones where you're like, okay, whatever the people you have to deal with in your everyday life and your job and your house and whatever, but especially just with our family, how we're away from them. We all have our own lives outside, but for some reason we're forced to all have to constantly come back into this like nest.
Play our roles. Play the roles on our teams, our rivals. Yeah, to me, I felt it was it's a very different kind of film. The only caution to your audience is not really a caution. It's just that if you're used to the Hallmark dysfunctional family type film, this is not that. This is the antithesis. And that's not a knock against Hallmark or any of those films, but some people were like taken back by how argumentative and how intense some of those arguments were. And I don't think that's really the issue. I think that it's surprising in today's time to see a movie as real and as authentic as that film is, where what you said is very accurate. Everybody is their own worst enemy and yet a truth teller at the same time. And this is the whole thing about what great drama is you have a bunch of unconscious people who are all fighting for something. They're fighting to live. They're fighting for themselves. They're fighting to get something that has been missing. But it wasn't just missing that day. It's been missing every day that's preceded it before. But on this day was the day that everything changed. And then the truth being spoken, which to me is what the core issue is that finally the truth is being spoken. We're building up to that final explosion, and then everything begins to come down. And what do we have as a result of the truth finally being spoken? The family is disintegrating before our very eyes. But what happens next? And that's where I won't give the ending away. But it's a game of life.
And then those things that it's like all this, that they're huge things for each one of the characters separately. And we all have those huge things for all of us separate. But then we have those things in life that are, you know, bigger than actual birth and bigger than death sometimes, that don't affect us directly, but very quickly put everything in a different perspective of even like, whew, was this worth it? Was all this worth it? But sometimes it has to be said. And I don't know.
Yep.
It's just.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's a story of our time for our time, I believe. And like you said, there's no politics or any of this is all about family issues.
It could have been the 80s. It could have been the 90s. It could have been 2000. Yeah. It didn't matter.
Yeah. It could have been a Mexican family. It could have been an American, white American family. It's
and that's what I thought, like the loud arguments. I'm like, well, they're Italian from Philly.
Yeah. People have asked me, like, do they really fight like that? Oh no, they do worse. They beat each other. Like there are brothers that will bloody each other. These are people that threw snowballs at Santa Claus, that booed Mike Schmidt, the Hall of Famer baseball player, that when they used to do exhibition games back when the guy who was the co-writer, Dean Simone, when they did exhibition games with the New York Giants, there would be more blood in the stands than there would be on the field when he was growing up, because they fought each other. This was the Philly way, and it's not for the faint of heart. But
I tell West Coasters all the time, the East Coast is a different cut of people from Miami all the way up to Maine. And I have had bosses in like Portland, Oregon or Los Angeles that would say, I only hire East Coasters because if I tell one of these West Coast kids to grab a mop too sternly, they cry at me.
It's true.
But when I tell my West Coast friends, like, no, I grew up and I fist fought in school, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, in the South, you just don't get away with being passive aggressive for too long without somebody taking care of it. And there's also like, you don't get away with being a bully for too long before there's a bigger bully that's going to come check you in the South. It's like out West, the passive aggressive lack of real clout has become the muscle, the power. So everybody's kind of this passive aggressive. No one takes up for anyone. It's more about being liked than sticking up for what's right. And I don't want to just blanket it East Coast, West Coast. Obviously, New York is whatever and LA is whatever, but it's just my liberal heart. There is a whole spot that I'm like, I really can't wait till I get to a place that I'm like, no, we have to stick up for liberals again, because there is this whole, like, we should care if someone's just dumping trash on the ground, and we should care about the less fortunate, and we all should want chicken coops in our yard, and we all should, what's wrong if we want to eat fusion food and different, like, there's this liberal, musical, artistic thing that is really beautiful, and there's the side of conservatism and the religious right that I'm like, hey, you guys, you make me nervous sometimes when you talk in a certain way about certain groups of people, because first you come for the blank, the gays are always next. So there's two sides that I see they're good and I see they're bad, that I'm like, and I can see how, like you're saying, we got to be careful where we're at right now and what comes after this, because it's just as easy to take something that's a feel-good movement and like, let's kill all the pedophiles. Ellen's the pedophile. Cool, let's kill every girl with bleach blonde hair. And I'm like, wait. wait.
Yeah. Hold on. Tap the brakes.
That's so I do think
I argue those people that say, well, there's a million of us right now with pitchforks. I said, okay, you line them all up, have them go get their first kill in. What happens tomorrow? Do they go back to their job? Do they go back and kiss their wife on the cheek and tuck their kid in bed? No.
There has to be a place that
you unlock.
We have to save innocence too.
If you unlock that demon inside of you, you are not going back to the person you once were and clean, just washing off the blood. Like, okay, well, This all worked out fine, because you don't know what you're unleashing in people when you do that.
I agree.
I just don't want us to descend into basically this tribalism, which it will happen. I'm not saying you can avoid it, but you can mitigate and neuter it, spread and reach by living the example that says, you know what, we do need art. We don't need it to be woke art, because that's not woke. That's propaganda.
Yep.
Okay. So liberal art and conservative art really are not liberal nor conservative, because art is art. Art is an honest, authentic expression without preconceived beliefs in terms of outcomes. So in other words, you have your beliefs and your ideas of something, and then you go in to create it, and it gives you feedback. And that feedback is, there's an external and an internal relationship going on. It should be. It's the hardest thing to attempt, because to make real art, you can't be thinking about the art you're making. It's the flow. It's this is showing me something. I'm feeling this coming forward. It's correct. It's moving in a direction that's correct to me. It's a mirror. It's coming back and showing me something. And now I'm going to show you what I've learned from it. And then it's for you to judge and decide. That's art. The other stuff is propaganda. Propaganda, anti-propaganda, still propaganda, because it's reinforcing a side.
There's no such thing as anti.
There isn't anti anything. There only is. Anti-fascism is fascism in its logical conclusion. Okay. So what we're talking about at the end of the day is that if you have to be for or against something, you've already made up your mind. And fine, but
and you
let
give the
people
power
know
to
that.
the thing, like immediately.
Well,
yeah,
right. And so art, we have drifted so far away from what true art is, what true artistic expression is, that we're at a point where people will just accept the minimum as long as they're left alone. So don't tell me this, don't tell me that. And as long as you don't do that, and then I could just veg out and be fine. Well, guess what? That ain't going to cut it in the long term, because what's going to happen is it's going to be watered down even more. And everybody's just going to say, okay, the Overton window for everything else is there and there, but this has got to stay within the safe space. Safe space, because we can't go too far this way, or we can't go too.
Can't upset
you know what it
them.
is?
Can't upset them.
Diversity is in the diversity of ideas, of the individual uniqueness of each and every single being among the entire collective. But it's the uniqueness of each person, the spirit of an individual, that gives license to go, okay, I'm going to show you something you've never seen before. This is something that Frank Capra said, the Italian-American director who did It's a Wonderful Life, one of the most beautiful films, even to this day. It's timeless. And he said, you have more power than the president of the United States. You have them for 2 hours. And you can do more to change their lives in those 2 hours than an entire president with all of his arsenal of power. You can change them in 2 hours, because you can show them something they've never seen before, and you can change something in them. You can unlock something that's deep inside. Why? Because you're telling the universal divine truths without it being propaganda, and without it being, this is what we think, this is what we feel, and this is how you're supposed to see it. No. I'm going to take you somewhere on a journey that I went on, and an emotional ride. And every film that you can recall that ever had anything of value to you, you walked away feeling something. Film is about feelings. You can remember all the lines of a movie. You can recite the storyline and the scenes, but the only reason why that story holds, the only reason why you keep quoting those characters, Star Wars, whatever your favorite films are, is because there was a feeling there that you had when you saw that. And it wasn't messaged to you. It was communicated the way Frank Capra said. He said, drama, I used to think I was wrong. He said, I was wrong. I used to think drama was when my characters in my movie cried. He said that was wrong. Drama occurs when my audience cries. And that's 100%. The authenticity, the truthfulness, without it being, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, surface level, contrived circumstances of conflict. That's what we have in our mainstream today. And I'm going to tell you one thing. This is for any artist out there. Doesn't matter whether it's film or not. Hollywood and the media and all of those people have never been the audience, and they never will be. They are in their own echo chamber. They can only see what they see. You having the space to go outside of that is just simply a new mindset to turn and shift. Don't copy, don't imitate. Be born and live as an original. Don't die as a copy.
Yes.
Reboots, remakes, prequels, and sequels, they'll do all of it forever, infinitely, as much as they can maximize their profits. That's all they're chasing is money. Everybody in Hollywood at this point in time, and probably before, but I'm definitely telling you right now, is taking. Nobody's putting anything back in. Everybody takes there to feed.
Yep.
So art is very rare out there these days, not because they're against art, but because when you have a system and a hierarchy like that, art will not thrive in that kind of environment. And it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The industry is consolidating. I mean, I can give you all the statistics on that, but it doesn't really matter. The point being is that that space, which they used to occupy here, is now gone to here, which means they've left a void everywhere else. So if you're doing the work to reclaim your birthright on this planet, and you're putting all those broken pieces back together again to mend those wings so you can fly, what you can do is you have a space that has been left void and open. And you go, my God, there's something over here that people want. I want to create something different, something new, something I like. First, start with you. Start with what you like. Don't try to figure out what the audience likes. Don't try to figure out the marketing plan. This is what the studios do, by the way, with tens of millions of dollars. And you see how they fuck up with bad movies and bad scripts, with the best of everything, with the best money, the most money that you can get, the best screenwriters, and they still screw up Dune and Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And all these other films. They screw them up because they don't get. And it has nothing to do with the marketing. It has nothing to do with day and date, audience share, and the demographic and all this, that, and the other. It's like, no. Do what you know and what you love first. The rest will take care of itself. Now, the key is that if you're going to do what you love and enjoy and it inspires you, then you have to know, okay, who is the audience for this movie? After you figured out the first part. But if you go, who's the audience for this movie? Well, I mean, I've literally been around people that they go, okay, we've got X actor and this. I mean, we're talking A-listers. They're available. We're going to make this movie a go. We got a director. What about the script? Well, we'll worry about it when we get to post. Like we're going to punch up the script. We're going to work on the script. They don't care. It's the concept and the marketing and the stars available and the window that they have available to it. And it's like, yep, that'll be out next, whatever. That's slated for this fall. It's called content. And what that means is bullshit. Because everybody's marketing content, and it's called glut. And it's to fill a pipeline. And everybody's going to get their take and their piece out of it before anything has been said and done, before any money has been made, before there's any marketing or any. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, It's all to get the hype going, and everybody's getting as much as they can out of it before anything has happened. There's no scalability in Hollywood.
The art's already lost before. It's like there's no creation to be had if you already had in mind exactly what you're creating it for. There's no
Yeah.
there's no magic. You already have the outcome. You already have the ending. You already
It's
have,
predetermined.
and it's for
predetermined.
It's for all these bottom lines of this really physical. We need this socio-demographic to come in, and it needs to have this vibe and this feel and this thing, and we have to make them happy, and they like these products. Let's put them in the background, and they like this color. Let's do that, and then before it's said and done, you have no authentic stamp on anything in that.
Nope. And the wokeism stuff that people all complain about, that'll go away because it's not going to be profitable, except a smaller group.
Yeah, it's the rubber band, dink, dink, back and forth.
Yeah, and they tried it in the 90s and it failed then too. I mean, it serves a purpose, don't get me wrong, for all sorts of things, cultural engineering and otherwise. But they will change. I mean, they will pull that crap out of the movies. But it doesn't mean that they're going to all of a sudden go back to screenwriting craft and have any awareness of what mainstream audiences want. There's a hunger out there. I don't care if people like say, oh, Hollywood's a bunch of pedophiles and I hate Hollywood movies. Okay, between that and probably like say that's the extreme, right? I can't enjoy movies or music or anything anymore. But take it like, okay, so let's just pull that back just a little bit. And so there's this other extreme down here, right? So you got this polarity between the woke satanic shit and this other stuff, right? And you just, I hate this and people enjoy this. There's a whole big share in here of people, whole big share. I mean, guys who are not sophisticated. I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm not saying he's not a sophisticated individual but he's not a knowing filmmaker of what goes into making film. He saw the movie Eternals. He likes those kind of movies, Marvel, big actions. He goes, I said, well, what was it about? He goes, honestly, he saw it the week before. He goes, I don't even remember it. 100 to $150 million budget. I don't even remember it. He goes, special effects, it's the same. Stars doesn't matter to him. He wants the story. He wants the experience. And the experience with all that money. So what I'm saying is that here is a guy who is their
Avatar
target demo.
Is Fern Gully. Like the experience, like the emotion that you pull out of the movie Avatar is the little cartoon Fern Gully, and the money difference of one to the other, it doesn't change the emotion that was pulled from what you were supposed to. Yeah. Right.
So this is the thing. I mean, we're coming into a time where yes, there's a lot of stuff with crypto, Bitcoin, NFTs, all that kind of stuff. I'm not getting into but I'm talking about financing. People who are anti-status quo for real, the majority of them are in Bitcoin and crypto. They want to decentralize. They want to do anti-status quo material. They're wanting to get involved with artists, whether on a micro scale or a macro scale, to fund things that they want to be a part of, the specialness, the exclusivity. It's not just, it's your ability to create. So if you have an ability to create something, stop thinking about legacy investor money like venture capital and Silicon, like all of that money, all of those people, that's an old, when I call legacy, I mean, it's the old way. It's the old system. It's the old thinking. It's the old way of thinking. The only thing that a legacy investor today thinks about is where to ride things, that are going to make them look good among their other peers. I've talked to these guys. They're not as sophisticated as you think. They're smart business people. They do make smart business decisions. They make calculated risks. Based on their belief in you and getting the job done according to what motivates them, right? It's not just the deal. It's a little bit of that, like, hey, I picked the winner over here, my horse race. They're picking jockeys and horses on the track. That's pretty much what they're doing. I'm simplifying it on the whole. Then there's another group though out there that goes, I like what you are doing. I like what you're about. I want to be a part of these kinds of markets, or let's say products or films or stories. I just like what you guys are all about because you get it. You get what this is all about. You're not asking for $50 million to go make your movie and we're going to go and get all these big stars. You're going, no, man, we want to create next generation 21st century movie studio. What does that look like? Well, it's going local. It's going niche. There's stories out there that are in books. There's stories out there in our neighborhoods. There's people out there who haven't had a story told about their lives that are actually amazing and are universal.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to do a comedy or a horror film or an action adventure movie. We're doing heart-centered stories about real things and real people that everybody can relate to. And what we want to do is we want to create an ecosystem. Well, that's an overused word. We want to create a cycle. We want to start with creation of story that is authentic, that has the craft that is needed in order to appeal to people on an emotional level. We want to put it with authentic actors who don't need to be names, because you don't need names in movies today. You really don't.
You don't, yeah.
Tom Hanks up on the screen, no matter what you think of him. Well, I mean, people, oh God, but Tom Hanks, what I'm saying is it's like what it was in the 60s and 70s. Cary Grant's up on the screen and young people are like, that's an old guy. That's the same thing today. The younger generation, if they know him as, whatever, it doesn't matter. But they're like, they don't have the connection
cool guy's
between.
Cool, the old guy's old. Yeah, they don't know Kate
That's
Blanchett.
It. That's
like
all
we
it
do.
is.
Yeah.
Andrew
pretty
Garfield,
pretty.
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Tom Holland being in a film doesn't mean jack shit unless you go, oh, Tom Holland, the guy I like in Spider-Man, now you're going to do him as Fred Astaire, but okay, well, that's not a crossover audience because Tom Holland's in it. I mean, yes, he has star power, if you will, among certain, but it's
percentage-wise, it's not, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, what's the story? What's the movie? This was happening 6, 7, 8 years ago, and Hollywood still hasn't learned. The movie The Butler.
Yeah.
Okay, that movie broke all sorts of records overseas in pre-sale and in box office, and people were like, "Wait a minute!"
And it took place in like 2 sets, like yeah.
Right, but it was a period piece. It was an American story and a period piece about an African American. Okay, why does that? What does that mean? That means that what translates here does not necessarily translate overseas, but because it was a personal story, it said something about somebody that they related to. It had nothing to do with the time, the place, and the setting. Look at The Godfather. Godfather could take place in ancient Rome, or in Latin America. It's a timeless story. Casablanca is a timeless story. We're looking at those the classics, and they use this it's noir. No, it had nothing to do with that shit. That's not what people see. Citizen Kane. Man, if you want to see a movie about today, watch Citizen Kane, about a guy who destroyed himself. Why? All because of Rosebud. What was Rosebud? The childhood memory that was taken from him. And what did he do? He filled his whole life with things, and all of it went up in black smoke at the end. You want to look at Network, a movie like Network, made in 1976. You want to see a movie about right now with Howard Beale?
Totally.
It's a movie for our time, about our time.
It could literally be released today. And
it could be released today, and it would be a massive success because people would understand and relate to, holy shit, that's right. Oh my God, they do. Nightcrawler is a 2014 movie, very much, it's a much darker one with Jake Gyllenhaal. That one is a masterpiece. It's not as accessible as Network and some of these others, but it too has universal themes and principles in it in a very dark world.
Detail. That movie is tedious. I like tedious movies where it's like detailed, and they make like the walk down the corridor feel like how long the walk down the corridor should feel. Like, I don't know if you watch Secession. It's this TV show on HBO. I really just like the music in it so much. It has this score that is like it's as important as the cast. And so it will just be their walk laid out with the music, and how tedious of you just see somebody's sweaty upper lip and somebody's fidgety hand on their knee. And just with this nice classical, like it's just, I love that kind of stuff in movies that, like you're saying, you don't need to pay $20 million for a star. It's all just
you can make movies today on a budget for $250,000 to $500,000. Okay, you're not going to be able to tell these big scope stories. Okay, but I'm talking about like heartfelt dramas, thrillers, supernatural. The digital revolution is here. Filmmakers today coming out of college have more capabilities than a diversity of labor 20 to 30 years ago. They are editing, they are doing sound mixing, basic sound, they're doing color correction, they're doing special effects, they're shooting, writing, and directing, all of that on a laptop and a digital camera on the whole. I know there's other equipment, but I'm saying the capacity for creativity is at an all-time high at such an affordable cost. You could take an iPhone today, put a lens on it, get yourself a boom mic, do the recording. You could have a high quality series, film, but it takes craft. See, this is the thing. It's not just because you have this capacity that then it becomes instantaneous. You still need the craft.
Look, we all have this, and not everyone can take a picture. We all have the best cameras in the world, but still being able to take a good picture is a craft. It's a skill. Being able to put a paintbrush, anyone can put a paint on a canvas, but you do get better at it the more you do it. Anyone can sing, but you do get better at it the more you do it. Every single art, I think one of the misnomers that was given to us is that we were born artists. And a lot of us, we were born artists. And somewhere we were drawing on the wall and a parent smacked our hand and then we just stopped drawing. Or we were banging on a pot and pan and they just smacked our hand and we stopped making music. And I think a lot of these things, we were this magnificent kind of, like this kid that you're talking about. We were just little creative artists all the time, drawing in sand. We had ideas, like even our play, like how about I pretend I'm the vet and you pretend you're the tiger. And then we'd make we didn't even have movies, cameras, or boom mics. We just created this whole world. And I think we all have the ability to totally get back into that again. Start using those muscles, everything that you thought 100%. You couldn't do.
100%. It's,
creatures creating.
That's it. I mean, it's so weird. I'm kind of like looking at this, and I'm not, this is not to diminish this conversation in any way, but I realized that people are really starved for truth and good things that are real, that are really real. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it, Hedges said it years ago, Chris Hedges, which I don't listen to a lot of the stuff he says these days because he's still a socialist, but he said something that he says he said this years ago. We're awash in electronic hallucinations. And here's what I will tell people in the digital space: if you wish to create virtual reality. Okay, virtual reality today is being used for games. It's being used for hospitals. It's being used for pornography. That's going to have some really dire consequences. So will the gaming.
Speaking of imagination, that's what they did to ruin any of that kind of root chakra energy. Took away all imagination. So here's my, I guess, my pitch to anybody out there that's working in technology today, because I actually wanted to do this, and I don't care that I do. I would love to do this, but I would love to use virtual reality to bring us closer to humanity. And how would we do that? Well, if you understand how virtual reality works, it's actually plugging into your subconscious mind, and it's manifesting and rewiring your brain. It's simulating the sensory perceptions visually, auditory, and now they have suits where you can feel pressure, you can feel heat, cold, vibration, sensation. The thing about virtual reality, if you've ever been in a suit for any period of time, is that it begins to feel like reality.
even though you kind of know, your brain and your body sort of take over and they assimilate with it, and it learns that environment. So you can actually alter somebody's environment, and do more to rewire their brain to prime it for another reality in itself. That's why it's part of the reason why it's being done. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, think about it like this. What are the problems that are out there? Childcare, right? Childcare. Why is childcare such a big deal? Because, well, and now what about childcare specifically? Well, the quality of childcare is different. Well, of course, some pay more for this. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Every single person on this planet comes from different homes, different dynamics and parents, right? And there's studies that have shown where years ago, where newborn babies were held, like cradled by their mothers. Each one of them held their child differently, right? The hand position, all that. Okay. The study followed all of those babies up until when they became mothers and fathers, and they held their children exactly like their mother had held them without remembering that. We are, as I was saying, we are biological intelligence. We are encoding all of this, not just in our genetics, but the resonant frequencies, all that energy, not what you say, not what you do, but the whole being of you is downloading into that child. All right. And it's activating these codes in them. What we could do for healthcare and childcare is very simple. You could create a virtual reality environment where there's a baby. Again, you have your suit and your goggles on, right? So it's not a real baby, but it's an object that has weight distribution like a child. It feels like a child. And what you could do is you could wire the sensations of that baby to give feedback to its holder what that child is actually feeling and going through as you're touching it. What that child is actually hearing and how its body is feeling what you're saying to it. So are you speaking too loud to where it's hurting the child because you don't know?
Do the words even matter as much as the tone?
That's right. So what it does is it allows you to get feedback that allows you to modulate and rewire with conscious awareness of how you're touching and interacting with that child, so that it repositions you to a new way of holding the child and interacting with that child in a caring, loving way. We could take that same kind of technology and imagine someone who has had, let's say, a very bad negative child experience where, they say they had a crack mother and crackhead mom. And it's a terrible word to use, but it's on real. The whole, it's real. And that person has night tremors or trouble sleeping. Imagine being able to create a suit and a program that individual could get for the first time in his life or her life, sleeping like a baby, feeling the security and safety of its mother and the warmth and the heartbeat in the background as it's sleeping at night. And it could begin to re-entrain the mind in the subconscious mind program. This is all possible. We do this ourselves in the real world, but it's longer cycles, right?
Gosh, or even just the idea, if we go through our traumas, and sometimes when you go back enough, you remember these certain moments where the shame first came from, or the guilt first came from, or the whatever first came from. And they always tell you, if you can go back into that moment and maybe have a conversation with the adults that were there, and maybe have a conversation with you. But the most important thing they tell you in those moments is when you get there, make sure you hug yourself. Like the adult you hug the kid you. And that, imagine being able to go back in a virtual reality way and see, now I'm looking at Chaney, the 8-year-old, and I get to go into a room with her and just hug her. And now that emotion that I give Chaney, the 8-year-old, Like you're saying, what if I can go to sleep now with that suit tonight with the hug I gave myself? It's like mind-blowing
There's
awesome.
endless possibilities in this way, and it's a bridge, right? This is not Frankenstein trying to experiment with humans. It's got to be done with the utmost care and transparency so that we don't, take this in another direction. I mean, there will always be people that,
Nefarious
even with
things
good
up, yeah.
intentions, right? But even with good intentions. But I'm just saying these are the possibilities we start to need to imagine at a higher and higher levels. Like, well, how do we solve these things? So we can do meditation, we can do emotion freedom technique, which is actually what you just described, going back into that memory, but that's in a mind, it's in a hypnotic state. But maybe we can't reach everybody there, right? We have to go where they are. We got to go to where the gamers are. We got to go to where the kids already are. And we're going to try to help them unplug from that dimension that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we could create ones for nature. Imagine being in nature in a virtual reality and feeling the vibrations of what's actually happening, the subtle energy that's emanating from nature into the field, into us. It would start to activate and re-encode a lot of those things that we once were back then when we were born. So if we could stimulate those nerve endings, if we could begin to re-encode that original blueprint in people and unlock it, what could be possible with those kinds of technologies being available to people at a very low cost, affordable price, and being able to replicate that quickly? See, the key is that we've gone into a world where there's a big hierarchy. It gets steeper and steeper as things go up, and you have to pay, $300, $400, $500, $600 more dollars, right, to get the next bigger, better thing. But in this time is to reverse the flow of that, which is to make it distributive, to get it as to many people as possible at a cost that is affordable. And when I say affordable, I don't mean like market share. What I'm saying is this is a perfect example. This is giving something away for free. But this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If you scaled it properly, you could make it profitable to save the world, basically. This was a kid I saw 6, 7, 8 years ago. He was 14 or 15 years old, and I can't remember his name, but it's out there. It's on the internet. Now everybody's got this technology. He didn't go to college. He finished high school. He lived in a town in Colorado, about 3,000 people. And in his garage tool shed, he figured out how to make a robotic 3D printed arm. Now, what motivated him was that he met this young girl who was about the same age as him, a teenager, who had a prosthetic arm. She had lost her arm. When he found out that that arm cost her family, just to have a hook, $60,000, he said, "What? $60,000 to have a prosthetic limb with a hook on it." Didn't even really look. I mean, she could just, pick bags up and a couple other things, but really couldn't use the hands. He went to work with his Legos and some wiring to create a hand like this. And he did prototypes over the years, and he finally got it up to the level where it was a 3D printed hand with joints. And then the real kicker was when he brought the guy over who had lost his arm, and he said, "Now I want you to put this on and put your headset on." And he put a headset on, a little tiny band. And he said, "Okay, that light bulb over there, I want you to think about picking it up." And he thought about it, and a half second later, it picked up the light bulb. Now, this kid was 17 years old, roughly, went to the big Las Vegas technological conference that they do every year. I think it was E3 or something like that. I don't remember the exact one. But he came out there and he was going to present his idea to investors and all this. And he says, "You know what? I believe in good ideas should not be kept from us, but that should be shared. So today I'm announcing that my prosthetic arm that I've created is going to be put, all the blueprints are going to be put on the internet so that people could take that idea and grow it from there. He did this at a fraction of the cost for $250. So he went from 60,000 to 250, and he could have capitalized on that with market
Made
share,
all the money
revenues,
in between.
and he gave it all away. And now if you go on YouTube and look up, 3D printed art, you can find endless.
Mm-hmm.
This is like what this is. Let me just tell you what this is. This is why human innovation is so incredible. Roger Bannister, the runner from 100-something years ago, right? And people forget, he ran the 4-minute mile. We grew up with that. Roger Bannister, the 4-minute guy who broke the 4-minute mile. Okay, why does that matter? Because nobody had ever done that before in recorded human history that we know of. But Roger Bannister, they asked him, they said, well, he was a good runner, but he wasn't the best. He wasn't the most athletic. He wasn't the most well-known, the most popular at the time. He said, how did you do it? He goes, I visualized myself doing it. I literally told myself, he trained and everything else, but he still didn't get it until that day. But he said, all I imagined was that I was going to do it, and he did it. But here's the thing. Once he did it, weeks, months, years later, runners did it every couple of weeks. 100 monkeys. That's exactly right. What happens in our consciousness in the field is once you think it and you put it into possibility and you put it into action, it begins to spread everywhere. You want to defeat evil? What you do is you put into work new possibilities that evil cannot conceive of, because they are not looking at the quantum field of the Holy Spirit, and they're also not tapped into goodness in people. They always believe that through the propaganda that they can push everybody in to a set of ideas and beliefs, and evil can never see the good coming because it cannot conceive that something could make someone who's unconscious turn and look the other way at the right moment. And this is personified in the original trilogy of Star Wars at the end, where the Emperor gets lost. There's Luke, who almost kills his father, relinquishes evil. And the Emperor says, okay, so be it, Jedi. And now you're going to die. And he gets lost. The Emperor gets lost in his evil. He's blinded by his hatred. And that's when Vader comes over, lifts him up, and throws him into the pits of hell. It's a metaphor. But the point I'm making is that Luke Skywalker won that day, not because he killed his father or killed the Emperor, but because evil defeated itself, because good was greater than all of it. And if we take that as our creed, and we live that every day, is to dream what is impossible and make the impossible possible, you don't know what ripples you are sending out into the field that will be captured and recreated and remanifested at such a level that it can eclipse and wipe away all of this crap in a very short period of time. Because if you're doing things divinely and otherwise with love and care in action, it's contagious. There's a virus out there that's supposedly really contagious, and it's called the mind virus. But if you reverse the flow from fear to love, it's going to spread like a tidal wave, and no one can stop that. No one can see that coming, and no one can stop it from coming.
I love that. John Paul Rice, I've loved hanging out with you, and I hope you come back and hang out with me again sometime. But tell everyone where to find all your stuff.
Okay. No Restrictions, ENT.com is my website for my company. It's got all of our movies up there. If you want to see the movie Game Day, you're going to go to gamedaythemovie.com. It's on Vimeo on demand. It's got the link right there. You can rent it for $3.99 or own it for $9.99. It's also on Amazon USA. We're going to get it out on other platforms. There's a lot of our other films on Tubi. I don't know if people know that one, but they're for free with ads. Game Day is not up there yet, but our other films are. Child's Voice is on there. We've got Memories of a Lost Love. That film, actually, I just want to say this about this. to wrap it up. Memories of a Lost Love is a film I made 11 years ago. And it was about a young man, Paul, who leaves his home after witnessing a murder in his house by his mother. And what happens is he's trying to remember what is real and what is imagined. And it's a relevant story for this time because it's all about child abuse in the home, but it's also about the truth. And it's one of my personal favorites. But if people want to check a movie out about now, in that particular subject matter of child abuse, which is not graphic in any which way, but it's a really, really beautiful film. But no restrictions, ENT, and Game Day the movie. You can find us there. And if you want to connect with me on social media, I am on Instagram at No Restrictions and Gab. Twitter, I'm very rarely on, and I don't expect to be there much longer, nor Facebook, because the censorship is just outrageous. So,
does God win this time?
Oh, he always wins. Well, is whether he's a he or not. God can never be
that's
defeated.
it. You messed up God's pronoun. I can't even release this.
She, they, them, him, hers, these, them.
I've loved it. I
think God encapsulates all the alphabet and the manifestations of. And so if we want to say it, all of us are God's children, no matter what you want to call yourself.
And we win this time.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love it. Thank you for hanging out with me. And
thanks for having me, babe. I love you. And I remember that day we met, and I remember that very well. So I'm glad we got to do this.
I love you too. And I really am looking forward to hanging out again. I'm like, one time I'm just going to have to sit down and film geek with you and be like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite actor? What was the movie you first knew that, like, one day I just want to film nerd. So like I had all these questions. I'm like, don't get off topic. Don't get off topic just to geek out on movies and Hollywood. And that
absolutely,
because we shouldn't be just because they were all evil doesn't mean there weren't some real fairy tales and life-changing stories that we all heard out of those evil people. And whatever happens to Tom Hanks, it doesn't take away all the stories that were laid out beforehand. And I think it's important that we keep some of these stories. They're important to our American history and our world history.
They are. And it's also important to know that the divine is always at work, even in that town. They're just the keepers of the secrets, and they're trying to contain it from spreading. That's really what it means. George Lucas is one of the people that I don't know him personally, but I know that Hollywood does not like him very much. He surprised them, caught them off guard with Star Wars. And part of the reason why they took over that franchise and have watered it down is because they didn't want those divine universal truths getting out in a new generation.
Yeah.
And if you go and look at his interviews about that and the new trilogy and all that, or the sequels, you'll hear quite a few things from him. And that doesn't mean he's a great guy. I don't know him personally, but I do know that the divine always works through everything, and it has ways of surprising us in both showing us the evil and showing us the universal truth. So just not to give up on movies because when I say a couple of people, their really bad behavior and wickedness could not diminish the universal truths that were behind what created their careers in the first place. So
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you guys for listening. Bye-bye.
So she has been Chaney, and now she's off to smoke a blunt. See you next Tuesday, you fucking cunts.